Sure keeps things warm.
That's right. It's t-shirt weather in the shop. Mr. Chairman,
Sorry.
if you'd like to start 30 seconds early, you may go.
Okay, we've got everyone seated here. Everybody ready to go? We can go. Are we on live? Okay. Good evening. My name is Joe Stranowski, Chair of the Rockport Planning Board. We have a full board tonight, so we don't need to seat any alternates. We do have sufficient attendance tonight to constitute a quorum, so I'm officially calling this meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. on January 25th, 2024. The Planning Board is comprised of volunteers appointed at the discretion of the Select Board. Our charge is to ensure that the applications that come before us comply with the town's land use ordinance and the Rockport Comprehensive Plan. The board must determine whether there is sufficient evidence in the record, which is the material supplied by the applicants, to support a decision to approve an application. This is accomplished by comparing that information in the record to the requirements of the land use ordinance or the statute that it affects. Let's see, before we start this evening, does anyone on the board wish to identify a conflict of interest on any of the three applications that will be presented tonight that would make it difficult to judge these applications fairly and objectively? If so, I ask that you identify these conflicts now. All right, hearing none, we will proceed. First, I guess just a note here, I guess I've heard there was a little bit of confusion today. At the planning board meetings, we typically we always accept public comment on each item that comes before the board. That's in terms of process, that's the first thing we do before we enter into deliberation, is we hear comments either that were sent in online or comments that are provided by individuals that are attending the meeting here. So that's a standard thing for the board. It did say that in the public notice today, that the public was invited to attend the hearing tonight to offer testimony or provide written testimony to the town through Orion. So just to be clear on that, we're open always on that public comment. Orion, we did receive some written comments from the public prior to this meeting. You posted those on SharePoint.
We did, yes, correct.
Okay. I hope everyone has had a chance to take a look at those. There were two that came in after the deadline that was set. They were pretty short though, so hopefully folks had a chance to take a look at those. I don't believe we have any minutes that were posted on SharePoint to approve tonight, so that's not in. So the first item, which is item 3 on the agenda, will be consideration of proposed amendments to the land use zoning map with regards to changing the zoning on a parcel located on Park Street, and it's annotated as map 33, lot 073-001.
35, map 35.
Map 35, sorry. This proposal is to change the current zone from 908 Rural District to the abutting 902 Village District. And if you could just bring the map up on that real quick, just to refresh everyone's memory. I think this was... Is there anyone here from that property tonight? Yes, okay. So if you, during the course of this, is there anything you'd like to say in advance of us considering this?
Yeah.
If you'd step up to the microphone, please, by the podium.
Okay.
Just identify yourself and where you're from. Rockport, I assume.
Yeah, my name is Dan Eaton, and I'm one of the abutters of the property. And I just want to point out, my wife Leslie and I do have a purchase sale agreement in effect right now to purchase that property from Dwight. And our intent is to just keep it the way that it is,
Okay.
And blend it into our property. for the reason that we really don't want to drive down our driveway and stare at someone's house every day. And our neighbor Clark and his wife is here, and they share the same feelings.
Okay.
So, just wanted the board to be
Thank you.
aware.
Anyone else want to speak? Clark?
Batter up.
My name is Tom Cox. I live directly across the street from this property. And I would like to suggest that you be very, very careful in spot zoning, because I think if you change this zone, it fills the definition of spot zoning, and once that goes, it could become a tradition that would haunt us. So I ask you not to change this, because it qualifies, as far as I'm concerned, as a spot zone. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Clark?
Sorry about that. Hi, my name's Clark Doran. I'm the next door neighbor, and I believe I am the person most affected by what happens with this property. As a matter of fact, when we first bought our house, this property was included in that land. And about 3/4 of the way through our negotiations for the property, Mr. Johnson decided to cut this piece out. He then tried to sell it to us at what we considered an unreasonable price, so we were never able to successfully complete a deal. But the bottom line is, we bought our property reliant on this community's zoning, which showed that property as clearly marked rural. There was a small strip, and you know how printing goes, and I don't know how long ago that map got printed, but there was a small strip of overlap that showed some village zoning that ran down the line of that property. To rezone the entire property as a result of that printing error, I think would be not fair to me, who had a clear indication that that property would not be developed when I purchased the property. But I think it would be a very, very dangerous precedent for this town to set, because we can go and look at the rest of this map, and I'll bet you we can find plenty of other places where there are little errors, little overlaps, where maybe somebody could use that as a rationale for doing something else that would not be in the best interest of this community. And I can't tell you how strongly opposed I am to the Plan B. I am all for the Eatons consummating their deal. But if a Plan B, if they're not able to do that, and if a Plan B is implemented, where that property is sold to somebody to build a house there, let me just tell you, this planning board and the governing body is going to hear from a lot of lawyers. And if I have to hire all of them, I will, but I'm sure there'll be others who will as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else care to speak on this one?
Joe, Clark, where is your parcel?
Next door.
In 35 lot 73?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, with that then, hearing no other individuals wishing to speak, I will close the public comment section and the board will deliberate on this. In reading the letter, I guess I'll just ask one question to start. I thought I understood that the parcel that's outlined in blue is divided between two zones,
It is currently.
and that the parcel outlined in blue, they wanted to make a single zone
Correct.
and not impacting the rest of the property.
So that entire, what the current owner wants to do is to make that entire blue parcel, or that blue outline into 902. So
Okay,
it'd be all
okay.
orange.
What about everything outside of that blue box?
They have no authority to
No,
make a
okay, no changes
recommendation.
to that,
Correct.
okay. Okay, any comments, questions from the board on this one?
Is the argument that was presented about printing error, is that something that exists on the map that is recognized? I know several lots have lines running through them that have two zones on either side within a lot. And I think for the most part where it's been clear, like even right across the street, you see that the line separates two lots pretty cleanly. I think it's just sort of, you need to draw a line somewhere, and you don't always draw the line following a property line, is that correct?
Generally, you would want to follow
Interpretation.
property line. That's what you'd want to do.
Yeah.
Why that was done that way, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, because if you just go up a little bit to
Yeah,
look
let me just-
at.
I've seen a lot of these
Yeah.
in my time
I
on the
think
board
this
here,
is-
where there's properties divided in half, lots divided in
Yeah,
half.
well, the Eatons, is that correct? Yeah, your parcel currently has two zones on it, you're divided kind of right in the middle, right in the half, so that's another one. That's an example, there's much larger,
Right.
so.
Is that because the Camden line runs right through our parcel?
No, like so you're right here, where my cursor is. Camden line's way over here. So that is just by whoever drew the zoning map at the time. That's all that is.
And whether it's an error or not, the map is the map, is
Correct.
that correct? Okay.
Correct. Now there is, and I forget the exact location in our land use ordinance, there's a provision that talks about if there is two zones, how you would handle it. So we have some guidance on it, but currently, there's not enough of that 902 within it for that
Right.
individual to utilize 902 to their development purpose.
Understood.
It seems like somebody just drew straight lines
Mm-hmm.
right through middles of lots. all
Well,
over the place.
when was that lot divided off from 73, Clark? Or,
I think it was 2014. When I looked at the deeds and everything, I believe it was 2014.
okay.
So it may have come after the map was drawn, the zone was drawn.
Right, I'm saying like that back lot piece could have been just divided off based on the size of how big it was, not realizing that although I'm guessing if it was,
That's true. That is something that could have happened.
and it's also something that if it was fully in rural, that lot size wouldn't have matched what was
Correct.
required. And
Yeah.
so in order to have any piece to it, I'm sure they tried to slide it onto there, but I don't think that's something we can.
Yeah.
Yep,
think that's
I understand what you're saying, and I
Yep.
agree, yeah.
So, is there a what's the reason that you want to do this? I'm still not real clear on it.
The current applicant, well, I guess, Joe, do you want Clark to speak right now, or do you want John's question answered?
Well, let's pause Clark for 1 second, and go ahead, John, finish your thought.
Okay.
Well, I just want to understand why are we looking at this? What's the issue that you're trying to deal with?
He wants,
So
his
currently-
thought is that if we don't purchase it, the price is if the land is valued higher, if it's a marketable lot, a buildable lot.
Currently, the lot per our zone is too small, but if there's an argument, and this is the argument that's currently out there, and what he has to prove is if it's a legal non-conforming lot. If it's a legal non-conforming lot, then that means it met the dimensional standards of the land use ordinance at the time when it was split. We haven't gotten that feedback from him, but he is interested in changing the zone, then it would become conforming, and it is developable at that point. And that's what he's interested in
Okay,
doing.
so there is no house in the blue square today?
Correct.
Okay, I thought when I looked at the property card, I thought I saw a house on there. Okay. Okay, so the problem is the lot's not buildable today, right?
Yeah,
If the applicant can prove that it is a legal non-conforming lot, then it is buildable, but that's gonna require a lot of work and some proof. So right now, what I'm saying is I don't know, I can neither confirm nor deny, but if they wanted to build, they would have to prove that it is a legal non-conforming lot.
And to find a point, the legal non-conforming lot would be if that lot was subdivided prior to the current boundary of the zone being drawn, is that correct?
No, the land use ordinance at the time, if it allowed a lot that small to
Right.
exist in that zone, then it would be buildable.
The present land use ordinance would not allow
Correct.
that to be subdivided, so it's a question of whether it would have been allowed then, So that history needs to be-
Subdivided is the wrong word,
Okay.
but developed,
developed, yeah.
correct.
And you've not had time to do that research yet?
I'm not, that's not on the town, that's on the applicant.
Ah,
If the applicant
okay.
wants to build it, they have to prove that they can.
Clark?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a quick point. When this land was purchased by the applicant's father, Mr. Johnson,
This is the whole big lot now, or the little lot, which one?
no, the blue lot.
The blue one, okay.
It was purchased by Mr. Johnson to serve as a buffer for his property,
Okay,
not to build on.
okay, and Mr. Johnson is?
And now Mr. Johnson is deceased now.
I see. But
Mr.
his property
Johnson's
is the one
sons
below it?
now want to, if they sell it to Eaton's,
I see.
it remains as their father had intended. But they're, what I'm calling the Plan B, if they build on it, I mean, I just ask, what are the residents of this town, what can we rely on? Can we rely on the zoning? Can we rely on any ordinance in this town? Or can people just come along and willy-nilly say, gee, I'd like to make more money, so we'd like you to make this change? And I don't think you should do it.
Okay, so I'm trying to grasp the magnitude of your passion here, Clark. I'm trying to understand this. So this property is divided. It's about a little bit smaller than the other property that is right next to it there. It sounds like somebody wants to build a house on it. They can't do that. Is this, I've not been out there recently. Is this piece of property unique in the setting? I'm trying to grasp why this would be bad to have a house on there. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Oh, I can only say it's part of a beautiful open field
Okay.
with views of the Camden Hills that we have from our house. And we bought our house reliant on that being protected
I see.
by the ordinance and by this municipality. And I'm very upset that any consideration is being given to allowing somebody to build a house on it.
Okay. So your concern is having a structure there that would block your view?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. Oh, Ryan, is there any precedent for situations like this?
Anybody,
And-
so if anybody wants to change their zone, they just make the request, and then it comes before the
But
planning
the
board.
slice through as
For
far as.
slice through,
then-
no,
then
and I
it's-
mean,
it-
that's just an issue, that needs to be cleaned up in a zoning amendment. And larger scale, it needs to be cleaned up for sure, because it does cause an issue. That's just a larger project to take place at a later date.
And what is it? That lot would have to conform to, how does it work? Like, what is that lot conforming to? The zone that's a majority of the land, or
Well, currently, yeah, so,
is that the?
there's
the rule?
it breaks it down in the land use ordinance into the section that I'm not recalling off the top of my head. But there's a number of feet that you can go within, past that line. And then it's not enough to build anything on currently on his lot.
Right.
So there are provisions to allow something to happen. So if let's say it's like 75% covered on your lot, then you could argue that the majority of it is that zone. Go for it, Jan.
I'm confused.
I'm assuming give a question for me, but
I'm confused. I have a couple of questions.
go for it.
What I'm looking at right now is a lot that has two zones covered in the lot.
Mhm.
Are we being asked to convert the entire lot to one of those zones? And we are being asked to convert the entire lot to the non-rural zone, to 904 instead of 908.
Correct.
That's correct?
So
Okay.
the map that's before you is how it would look if it's approved by the voters in June
Right,
and
correct.
recommended by
Okay.
everybody.
If we do not approve that, then we're not making the whole thing rural. If we do not approve that, it remains the way it is.
Correct.
Partly one zone, partly another zone.
Correct.
Okay. This is in fact a two-step process. The first step is to determine if we wish to change the zoning. The second step would be if that area is buildable. If we do not change the zoning, then the question is whether that small strip that is currently 904 is buildable.
908.
If, uh, which is the, I thought 908 was the rural
We're at
zone.
908, 902 is what we're talking about here.
902 then. Let's talk about
Okay.
902 strip.
Then let me just go with orange and green. How's that?
Go for it.
Okay. If, currently, a small portion of this lot, less than half, is orange, buildable. But not, that strip alone is probably not buildable. If we change the entire thing from blue and orange to orange, then the entire lot becomes buildable.
Correct.
Okay. So the first question is, well, if we do not change it, that small orange section by itself, is that separable and buildable, or that is yet to be determined?
No, currently you cannot, currently as it is, he could not utilize 902 to build on his entire lot.
Okay.
So if there's no recommendation to carry this on.
So the zoning question is the determinant value here, as to whether if we change the zone, then it becomes possibly buildable, possibly not buildable. If we don't change it, then it's definitely not buildable. Correct?
Yeah, I don't have to mention.
I would tweak that to not say definitely. I would tweak it to say they would have to prove that it's a legal non-conforming lot to develop it. That's all I
Okay.
would critique on what you just
And
said.
that would be based on the fact that it was modified prior to.
Correct.
With a different ordinance.
Correct.
Could you switch back to the one that's the divided section?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, clearly that, that doesn't look buildable per the ordinance today, because the orange section, I don't think you'd fit a structure in there, and the rural section, you would need, at least 2 acres. So I think, just based on,
Do you happen
the
to know
dimension.
the dimension?
It's 2.5 acre, or 2.6 acres.
No, it's about a 1 acre
Yeah.
lot.
It's a 1
Okay.
acre lot.
We just have bad information on the
GIS.
According to the tax
Okay.
map, it's 2.94.
Yeah, which I think must be wrong, because
Yeah,
it's got the
that's
same
incorrect,
number
that's only a 1
for,
acre lot.
for Clark's lot was the same number, so there must be
According
something
to the
missing.
tax maps, I own like 150 and I don't.
But anyway, it's 280 feet long and
Yes.
155 feet, tall on the screen.
Top to
In
bottom.
both sections combined.
280,
The
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 width?
blue line.
This way,
the
Yeah,
blue
that's
line,
It's
exactly
280.
155.
43,000 square feet.
right?
Right.
That's 1 acre.
Right.
So, why is this called non-conforming now? It's mostly in the rural area, which has a large lot size requirement. This obviously does not meet that, but there's nothing on it, so why is it non-conforming?
It does not conform to the 908 minimum lot size requirement.
But it doesn't have a building on it.
No, it doesn't.
You can have a lot
Correct.
somewhere, it's only non-conforming if you have it would be non-conforming if you tried to build on it.
Correct.
But certainly, we must have a lot of rural lots that are less than the minimum lot size.
And nobody cares.
And nobody cares,
Wouldn't
and they're
know.
not buildable.
How did this get subdivided in the first?
I think what Clark was just talking about, the owner at the time pulled a portion of it out during that process of the sale.
Pulled it
So
out
you
from
could
sale.
subdivide without conforming.
Yeah, yeah.
Question?
I can explain that.
Please step up to the podium.
Pam and Dave Spear were previous owners of that piece in question and our parcel.
And your
And-
parcel again is 3573?
I'm
This
the other
larger
green,
one,
the bigger green.
We're green.
this big one right here.
Okay.
Yeah, green and orange. And Alan Johnson, Dwight Johnson's father, purchased that piece in question to, as Clark said, to provide a buffer for his house. And then when Clark was in the process of purchasing the house, Dwight elected to pull that piece back off. So in effect, he created the non-conforming lot, created this hardship himself. That's how this lot was created. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
And this all follows after the map was established?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it seems like a critical piece of information here, what the timing order was of the ordinance and the ordinance and the zoning map, and when the deed was actually modified to do this. It seems like that's the information that we need to have
Well,
to determine if it was modified against the prior zoning map.
I guess, well, I don't know what that would do for you. I mean, I understand their story, and their story is probably more than likely correct, and I'm not gonna weigh against that. What I am gonna say is, we currently have a parcel, the owner's asking to change the zone into an abutting zone. That's really all that they're asking to do. The when and the how and why they broke it off, I couldn't see why that would help guide your decision in doing that or not.
Well, other than if that was not zoned, a split zone previously, wouldn't that make it buildable today? If it was not broken in
No,
half?
the
and
zoning line would remain where it is.
Why would the zoning line, if it wasn't established when this deed was divided? If this lot was split off in 1960 and the zones were established in 1970,
Oh, I see where you're coming
you
from.
see what I'm saying? I'm talking about the timing order of how this happened.
Well, sure, but even if there wasn't that parcel, let's say the orange wasn't there. We're gonna use this as just an example.
Right.
Let's just say it abutted right next to it, and they're requesting to change it. The arguments before us would stay the same. The confusing bit that I think everyone's hung up on is that little sliver, and whether or not that should be there considered. So they just abut the zone, and they can request, if they abut a zone, to change their zone district. That is allowable. If they wanted to change it to a totally different zone, that's a little more questionable
Right.
in that process.
Clark, where is your house? Where is your property relative to this blue square that we're talking about?
Know how to do it other than this, but we are exactly in the middle of this lot.
The
abutting lot.
you are in the yellow zone here.
So you're past, okay,
I
so
see.
he's pointing the map 35 lot 073.
And our house is just about centered, equidistant from the front and the rear lot lines.
Okay.
Just about the middle.
And your understanding when you bought this property was that property, that piece that you were not allowed to buy had been his buffer and he was not intending to sell that separately from the other.
Well, when Dwight said he was separating it, I had no idea
No
what he was
idea,
up to. I
right.
assumed that he was gonna try to.
Okay. So he tried to make 3 lots out of what is, on the map shows 2 lots. In other words, well, never mind. I'm not sure that I do either. Okay.
Yep. Just step up.
I'm Leslie, and as Dan had mentioned earlier, the whole purpose of this was, we are buying the land regardless of what zone it is. And what Dwight's trying to do is have it done in the village zone so that it does conform to be a buildable lot without the buyer having to prove otherwise. It doesn't matter to us if it's 902 or 908. We would prefer that it stays in 908 because we don't know how that affects us when we buy it. If it's 902, can we roll it into our property? Because now you've got it a 902 zone and we're a 908. So
You're in both. You wouldn't have that issue.
we wouldn't have that
You would
issue
not have that issue.
because that's a question for us. And, Orion's point about whether it's conforming or not, I think believe it's like section 4.0 or something like that on the zoning ordinance. Basically that says that if it's 150 feet setback from the road or 150 feet of frontage on the road, 15 feet from property lines, and there's no other abutter that owns the property, they can actually put through for a non-conforming lot to be able to make it buildable. And by doing that, that's what makes us nervous as neighbors, is you got this tiny 1 acre lot and who knows what somebody can build there. So that's the purpose that Dan and I are buying this lot, to prevent that from happening.
Ah.
So that hopefully brings a little bit of clarity, with the village zone being that you can pretty much do what you want on a small acre lot versus a rural.
And
Yes.
for clarification, your property is directly across the street?
No, our property is all the green behind that blue
Oh.
box.
Okay, so you also have frontage on Park Street?
Yes, we do.
Okay,
Yes.
so I get it. That whole big parcel.
The whole big
belongs
parcel
to you.
that's half orange and half
Got it.
green, that is ours.
I see.
Thank you.
So a comment that I will also add, I was not aware that there was a purchase sale agreement. I did talk to Dwight yesterday to see if he was gonna be in attendance or not. Said he's available via remote if need be, but if that is the case, then you can recommend or not recommend. It sounds like they're purchasing it anyway, but I think right now, to take that out of the consideration and just look at what you have right now on the table, the current owner is recommending to change the zone. So I would put that into consideration and either recommend or not recommend this proposal.
Okay, so, I keep missing something here. So, I think this party just said they were gonna purchase this lot. Their current larger lot is split. This lot would be split along the same line. I'm missing why there's an issue then, and they're not intending to build on it. So,
So right now, what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
if they're right in that, and I'm not doubting that they are,
Right.
before you don't have the evidence of that.
Right.
I'm sure they could supply it, but
Yep.
before you, what you have is a request from the current landowner to change that. And that current landowner has said, hey, remove me because I'm selling the property, and, that'll be that.
okay,
So based on the evidence that you have before you in the application, I think that's what you should stick with. And the public comment is the public comment presented before you.
Does the process Orion follow that we would, if we recommended changing the zone for the entire lot, it would go to the select board and then to the voters?
Correct.
Okay.
And then in that process, and the Edens, I don't know if you have a timeline on when that's gonna close? Is that gonna be before the next, do you know when?
We actually thought we were gonna close at the end of last year, but Dwight's out of, the state in it, so is his brother's traveling, so they have not been able to get together to sign off on everything for the closing documents. So
Okay.
we just extended it to April 26th on our purchase and sale agreement. We have a deposit on it and everything.
Okay.
And the only reason Dwight wanted to continue going forward with this is if for some reason we backed out and the deal fell through.
Okay.
That's not gonna happen, but,
Okay.
That's his backup.
that's his backup.
I see.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody ready to put forward a motion?
Actually, I'd like to ask
Or-
one thing, is
okay.
just to cite precedents, we've done these before, where
We actually just did one, yeah.
lots are on the edge of a zone where it benefited the owner to change that zoning, and it went before the voters and they voted for it.
Correct.
So,
We just did that actually last year.
yes, exactly. So the voters did vote for that, so there is precedent that we've done this recently.
There is, I mean, a little bit different circumstances in that case, but yeah.
The difference that I think is important is that that proponent came before us and made a pitch as to why we should consider it,
Right.
and made a clear argument for it, and was here and present. You said that Dwight could be made available. I don't know what that means, but there was someone there arguing on the behalf of the change.
Are we talking about the one up by the high school? Is that what we're talking about?
No, I was talking about the one over
Rockville.
in, Rockville,
Oh, yeah.
the farm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Both those cases, though, where there was an existing
Structure.
business in operation there, and
Right.
there was a clear need.
There was.
At least
Yeah.
that was established.
Yeah.
So, to me, this is just an empty lot.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna materially, I mean, it could or could not, you know. I don't feel like we have enough information here myself.
It sounds to me as if this is changing, or not changing this, leaving this as a buildable maybe position is a position for the in the current owner's interest, rather than in a sense of the original intent of that piece of property or the forthcoming intent of that piece of property, that this is a financial interest only, has nothing to do, he no longer owns the property. I just don't, it just strikes me as incredibly unneighborly to be doing this.
Well, yeah.
Joe, Tom's got a.
I have another question. Looking at the zoning map, it does look like 902 goes straight back through the large parcel that you have. That same line extends back. And so the back acreage there is divisible and would be buildable for single-family lots. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I just wanted to know about that, but this particular lot is taking mainly a chunk out of the rural section of that large parcel.
No.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's largely rural.
It's mostly sitting within that large parcel, half of the parcel that is rural, zoned rural.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but it currently is its own parcel. It's not taking any more out of another parcel.
But I'm saying if you look at the map and you draw a line through it, there is a small slice currently in the lot at question, which is zone 902, and the rest of it, the majority of it is 908, and looks to be contiguous on three sides with the
Oh,
large
you're saying the line
908
over there, and
parcel.
it would make him. I see what you're saying there. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
call the question.
Motion.
I move that we, if you're accepting a motion,
Go ahead, we can discuss it further.
yeah, I move that we decline to recommend changing the zoning of this to 902.
Okay, is there a second to that? Seconded by Jeff. Okay, further discussion. So we've got a motion on the table to decline this. Is there further discussion on this?
I don't see that there's a clear and present need to do this. It seems arbitrary, as Jan was pointing out.
Okay, so we'll go to vote. All in favor of declining the request to,
No, all in favor of the motion.
all in favor of the motion to decline the request. Okay, and I've got 7-0-0. Okay. Thank you. So we'll move on to our next item on the agenda.
Thank you.
And the next item on the agenda is another zoning request. Consideration of proposed amendment to land use map, zoning map, with regard to changing the zoning on a parcel located off of Route 90 and known as Map 25, Lot 133. This proposal is to change the current zone from 904 residential to the abutting 907 mixed business residential. So if we, Orion, we could pull up the map on that also, just to get us grounded. Is there anyone here tonight representing?
Yes.
Okay.
Joshua Carl.
Thank you, Joshua. Just 1 minute and we'll, might ask you to step up.
Okay, what do you want displayed right now?
Could you go down to the map, please, just to ground us on what the
Okay,
request
let me,
is?
Zoom out on this one a little bit.
There we go. Okay. So it's 133 is currently residential, as I believe, if you put the zoning map up, everything behind that would also be residential. Yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Okay. And everything, of course, along Route 90 is 907, mixed business and residential. And I believe from the letter, and Joshua will give us more details in just a moment here, that Joshua owns some property in front of that borders Route 90, and he'd like to expand his business back to include that property. So at this time, Joshua, if you could please step up to the podium, just introduce yourself, and just describe to us what the plan is.
So I'm Joshua Carl. I own Rockport Granite. So I currently lease the property with the buildings on it.
Could you zoom in a little bit, Ryan?
Yes.
Please?
And then I own the property to the right.
there we go. Okay, so which lots do you own currently?
So
131, 129?
So I own 125, 131. No, or 129, I believe. Yes.
129,
129.
Okay.
I believe, or maybe it's 131. 465 West Street is the one I do not own. The town owns the one to the left, and I should know this, but is that something you could check so that we could be clear on that?
I think I saw that. The town did own that parcel.
Yes.
Yep.
And that is the one lot 127.
I do believe
Yeah.
that is correct.
Okay, so I own 131. I lease 129.
Okay, so you don't own 129, though?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So I currently have a long-term lease on the property.
Could you describe where your business operations are today and how it's arranged on the lots?
So the buildings are on 129. There's a small garage that there used to be a house and a little garage on 131. We took the house down. It's now a parking lot, and there's a small garage out front. So what I would like to do is I use the land out back for storage, so I can neaten up the property out front. We're at the point where we're out of room for storage. I don't have any plans right now of wanting to build a building on it, but storage. The middle section of the property is low. I think behind lot 135 and 131 is high and usable. And then down behind lot 127 is also, that borders MRC, is also usable. That section in the middle is low and wet.
Mm-hmm.
That currently, that is what I would like to do, is be able to expand my storage into that back area.
Okay. Could you describe your business today just a little bit to us?
So
I've passed it, but I've not been in there.
Yes, so I have quarries, 5 quarries throughout the state of Maine, and we bring material in and cut it into mostly high-end residential, outdoor packages. So the entryway to the library here, we did a lot of the stone outside came from us as well. So mostly high-end residential landscape packages, steps, patios.
Okay. And when you say you process it, you cut that, and what does that involve, cutting that? Is that?
So we bring the raw material in and put it under saws and slab it into 2 inches or 3 inches.
Okay, so it's actually a saw that does that?
Yeah, we cut it, yeah, and shape it and finish it. And we don't do any installation, we just supply people with stone.
Okay, and these operations, are they mostly indoors, are they outdoors, or combination?
It's a combination. All the saws, everything, all of the production is inside.
Okay.
The outside is just storage.
Okay.
Who owns lot 133 and what is currently on it?
133.
The lot that you want to expand, you want.
I own 133.
You own the lot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I
what-
bought 133 and 131 at the same time.
Okay, and what is on 133? Is there any?
There's
structure?
there's nothing.
Okay.
on it. Yeah, currently.
So this, you
There's
just want to
some-
expand onto your own land,
Yes,
which is already zoned appropriately or not?
It's zoned residential, and I would need it changed. to
You
the
need it changed to
907,
mixed.
Yes,
I
to
see.
the mixed use, yeah. And it kind of fits the corridor, if you look at it, down through there of the commercial
Right.
zoning that's there now.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Actually, while we got you, so you want to do this just for storage?
Yes, at this point, yeah. Down the road, maybe a building, but for the foreseeable future, what I would like is, yes,
Open air storage?
open area storage. Yep. Yes.
Does your business pollute in any way or leave tailings or anything on the land?
No, everything, the saws use water, but that process is all recycled. So no, we don't.
Okay. So you wouldn't be inflicting no environmental damage on lot 133?
No.
Well, but you're saying you might build on it at some point in the future?
Yes, I mean, I don't know down the road if I'd wanted a storage building. Storing stuff in the wintertime, having a building out there to put things in the wintertime to keep the snow off them, that's a possibility. At this point in the near future, in the next 5 years, I don't have plans of wanting to do that. But
Yeah, I mean, if it was rezoned, it would be governed by the land use ordinance and whatever you could do in that zone.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what, yeah.
Right.
No, I get that.
Any other questions from the board?
I,
Okay, thank you, Joshua.
okay, thank you.
is,
Hold on.
so 131 and 133 are both part of this discussion.
Well, no, it's just
No.
133. He owns 131.
131 is also owned by,
Yes.
131 is owned.
Right, and that's
And
zoned
these are all
business.
yellow, so these are all the same zone?
No.
This is.
No, the map that's on here, Tom, is correct, today. That's what it is today.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
proposed
I-
change.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
That's
I
what
see.
they'd like to do.
Proposed. Got it,
Yep.
got it.
Okay, at this time, let's open it up for public comment. Is there anyone that would care to speak? Yes, sir. Could you please step up to the podium? Introduce yourself.
My name is Jeff Kubel. I reside at 30 Binding Street, Rockport. I've been at that residence for over 45 years. And it was always a quiet area, as it was for much of Rockport 45 years ago. But since Rockport Granite has come and opened up this business, it's been a lot of noise. And I understand a company that brings in boulders the size almost of small Volkswagens, cuts them up on a saw in a shed, is going to make noise. And there was quite a bit of noise back in 2014 when those doors to that shed where they cut was open. We filed complaints, and Rockport Granite put in some insulation, and they closed the doors. But that hasn't stopped Rockport Granite from operating after hours, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, disturbing my sleep, neighbors' sleep. Since 2014, there have been over 13 complaints made, many of them with the police. And I know, because I've been the one that's called on some of them, because I've driven down to make sure that it was Rockport Granite making the noise at night with the machinery. And I heard them, and I called the police, and the police came. And this is all logged, and it's all with the code enforcement officer. Code enforcement has been involved with all of these incidences. 2018, Rockport Granite began crushing rock. And I think if all of us know, crushing rock is a very, very noisy operation. They weren't approved to do that. We contacted code enforcement, and code enforcement made them stop. 3 months ago, middle of the day, well, actually it was in the morning, 10 o'clock, all of a sudden we started hearing all this terrible, terrible noise, this crushing noise. I drove down to see what was going on at Rockport Granite. There was a huge excavator, and it had been pulled up onto a pile of stone. And it was lifting a large stone over and over and dropping it on other stone, breaking it up. In effect, crushing it without a rock crusher. Contacted code enforcement. Code enforcement got in touch with the company and had them stop. Rockport Granite, since 2014, has not been a good neighbor. They make a lot of noise. Granted, it's during the daytime, and they're using a hell of a lot of, they're using a lot of equipment, large equipment. That's part of their business, I understand that. But when it's operating after hours, and they've been told over and over not to operate after hours, and they continued to do it, and we had to get the police involved. This is not a good company, and it's not a trustful company. And I am very much opposed to any change being made so that they can expand and use this property behind them and change it to be mixed business residential as it does for their plot that rests on Route 90. So I'm requesting that the board really take a look at this and think about the reputation for this company and how it treats neighbors, how it's acted around the regulations for town, and how those have been disregarded. So ends my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned at the beginning where you live. I'm just trying to get a sense of the lay of the land here.
I'm not in a butter.
Oh, you're not in a butter?
I'm not in a butter.
But where are you?
Where I am is probably about 1/8 of a mile as a crow flies.
That street over there that the cursor, can you see the cursor moving?
Did you say
It's
Bonnie
Bonnie
Street?
Street. It's
Bonnie
on Bonnie Street.
Okay,
I'm right up behind where it used to be Bruce Malone's boat building business.
okay.
So it's a straight line almost through the woods
Okay.
from Rockport Granite. And the sound just booms right across.
Okay, I was just trying to understand how far away you were.
And that's where it is.
Okay, thank
And
you.
it's just, to me, one other piece, when it was Rockers back in 1998, it was a quiet business. It was a business. What we have, what we have now, since Mr. Carl bought those 2 extra parcels, is we have an industrial, excuse me, an industrial operation going on. When you look at the size of the machinery, the excavators, the front loaders, the size of the boulders that are being brought in, when you look at an industrial operation, you look at the size of the equipment and you look at the size of the material and what's being handled. To me, this meets the category of an industrial operation, and it's in a mixed residential business zone. So to expand this and make it even bigger means more potential for noise for people on the backside over on Alexandra Drive. That whole area back there, all those houses back there, to be subjected to the same amount of noise that we on Bonnie Street and Karen Lane have been subjected to. And I'm not just representing myself, but there are other people that are concerned about this also.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anyone else to comment on this one? No. Okay, with that, we'll close the public comments and start board deliberation. Okay, so everyone understands what the request is here. Everyone understands the current lot situation, how they're zoned, and we're looking at a request to make that rear parcel now mixed business residential so that the business can expand back there with storage right now is what's been described. Questions, comments?
If it's helpful, I'm just reviewing what's allowed in 904, the residential zone, versus 907, mixed business residential. And it seems as though there are no, apart from boat storage, no industrial activities allowed in the 904 zone. So it's not as though storage is something that would be allowed in 904, even if there weren't industrial operations.
Okay, so you're saying if it was left 904, material could not be stored there?
Exactly.
Right, right.
I'm concerned about the complaint that I heard and wondering what the position of the planning board is with regard to determining whether or not a business is meeting within the requirements of its zone, or if that is somebody else's job. Predictably, the code enforcement officer, who has been informed of this, my initial feeling is that our responsibility, as stated, would make us ignore the questions raised in the complaint. But that makes me feel awful. And so I would like to figure out who is responsible for determining whether or not a business meets its requirements of the zone that it is in, and whether or not this can be, that much can be resolved or at least explained to us before we make a decision on expanding a zone into new possibilities for this business, or whether that is simply not our zone to
That's a
deal
code
with.
enforcement issue today, I think, isn't it?
That's correct. And when issues are filed, the code enforcement officer contacts the owner and works out whatever issue needs to be resolved.
So what has happened with the code enforcement, between the code enforcement officer and Rockport Granite is not our business?
No, I don't want to litigate,
Okay,
what
no, that's
code
why
enforcement has done tonight. The real issue on the table is changing the
The
zoning
zone.
on a different
Understood.
property.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Has the town worked in this area around changing zoning down at this end around Danica Candles in the recent history? I know we talked about it and during a meeting I happened to be in before I was on the board, and I don't know if we actually ended up moving any of that around.
There was an issue that was raised with the gentleman that owned Danica Candles about the
Yeah,
zoning.
on his that one had to
property.
do with, it was in the same zone, but it was, you remember we had those tiers, and it was just merging it all into one.
This is before.
I think it was about square footage, wasn't it?
Yes.
The square footage of the footprint, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know if it was changing the zone to that far end, or if it was all during the 90, whatever that area is, the collapsing of those different zones that we just got done doing.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, it was inside of that, so it's not
Yes.
this. Okay.
Can I just ask Orion, do you have any knowledge of any complaints being levied against this business for noise? Are you aware of that?
Noise is, and then whenever Scott calls, they,
No, I'm saying, are you aware that there have been complaints registered?
yes,
There have been?
there
You're
have
aware
been
of that?
complaints registered.
Okay,
How often, I wouldn't
Okay.
consider it as often, but complaints have been registered, yes.
okay. And it's been for noise primarily?
Noise, yes.
Okay.
And we've had this before us in the past. I remember having Emily Lusher speaking at one of our meetings. I'm not sure why. Were you up here before, Joshua, years ago?
Yes, when I bought the, is it 31, we did site plan review on that property.
Yeah. And the Lushers, is it Emily Lusher?
I saw that comment in the public comments, someone stated that there was a request for rezoning previously.
Yeah.
I don't have anything on it, but I also didn't dig for it. I mean, someone can request multiple times.
Sure.
It's not a one and done deal.
Yep, yep.
So,
Other thoughts?
Is there anything in the comprehensive plan about development along this strip?
it promotes development along the strip.
Does it describe what kind of development it wants to promote?
I don't know if I could go into that much detail on that right now. It promotes, I mean, it's pro-business. It's pro-business along that strip, and that has been promoted through the comprehensive plan. It's also pro-residential, so it's promoting development.
Yeah, and I, just kind of looking at this map at a glance, I mean, there's residential properties packed around this parcel.
Mhm.
Packed around it?
Well, I mean, it's not packed, but it's, you know,
Surrounding it.
it's surrounded by residential areas and,
Only 2 buildings, though.
well, all this, if the noise is traveling as far as he's saying,
I mean, it's,
if he's hearing it all the way, you know, across the road, yeah. I mean, then you look behind it and there's a lot of residential properties back there, and they've been there a while.
One of them is mine, which is why I was kind of not commenting. So let's see. We all know. Yep, Eric Boucher, 400 Park Street. So mine is the long spaghetti line that goes all the way through and comes out right across from Whitetail Drive.
Right
Yep,
here?
that one.
This one?
That would be me.
Okay.
So yes, you can hear it, but I mean, for me, I'm really good at ignoring noises, so it doesn't bother me. I can tend to sit in the house all day and I don't pay any attention to it. If I'm outside, I might notice it, but I have noticed it happen later, sometimes on occasion. But so I don't know. You're probably on the side because you're on that side. I have all those trees between me and and the property. I mean, so you know, yeah, there is, but all those other lots there, the ones to below, like in between, like below my lot and those two, the one, like, yeah, up,
Here, let me
up-
zoom into this real quick.
yeah, so 25097, that's a locked-in lot, obviously, and the woman that owns it never wanted to sell, I guess, and the one right below it is not that one towards Park Street,
To the left.
to the left of, that way.
This one?
Yeah, that one there, I know who owns that, and I actually have a right of first refusal if that one ever goes for sale, because of the way the lot is designed. But, I
Are there
mean, my
houses on those
house is like right in the corner there.
Are there houses on all those lots
Nope.
that are this surrounded?
There's nothing.
There
No, it's me right about where your mouse is about where my house is. And then the next lot over has a house, but it's on the other side of that lot, and all those other lots there. And I think the only other house is that one has a house, and the one in between, somebody bought it and put a drive like at the beginning, but there's no house there yet either. So actually, so there's only a house there, and then my house, and all those other lots don't have houses on them. Now, I'm not, you know, saying, I'm just giving you what's there now. Eventually, I'm sure somebody will build on those two front ones. I don't know how they're gonna get to the middle.
So are you concerned about rezoning of this property, 133 lot?
Not personally, no. I mean, obviously, I'd have to recuse myself when it hits the select board level, but, because I do have a conflict of interest, but,
Yeah.
you know, personally, no. I mean, there is some noise if you're just doing it for storage, and it doesn't get any worse. I mean, I'm a little concerned about some of the wildlife there, because there is a lot that runs around through there, but, you know, that's, you know, I'd kind of hope you'd deal with that in a way. All right?
Okay, thank you, Eric.
not here to brainstorm alternatives, but is an alternative to allowing the use, the proponents asking for, to go to the zoning board of appeals and say, I just want to lay down equipment and stones here? I mean, is that something that the zoning board of appeals would hear?
No,
Okay.
no. No.
This is the only mechanism that would allow
This
them to
is
do
the only
thing they're
mechanism
wanting.
that would allow them to have the use on that lot.
And so those properties along there are business, but I think that most of them are probably more retail, lighter businesses. This is, I think, just based on my knowledge of the area, that this business might be a little unique in that it's a little bit heavier industry than some of the other retail businesses along Route 90 there in that area.
Well, I was going through the allowed uses table for different zones, and really 907 is wide open. Wide open. You can do anything in 907, including industrial uses. Whereas the residential zone is quite restricted. So I would be hesitant as a planning board to make something like that is for a parcel that size and so close to other residential districts. I would be very hesitant.
Yeah, Tom, I'm trying to think of this as like not respecting the story behind it, but if somebody were to say, not Rockport Granite were to say, I've purchased this parcel, I know it's residential, but I want to put an intensive industrial operation on here, how would we approach that? We'd
It's
say,
wide open. If it's 907,
no,
it
no,
can
if
be
it's, sorry,
anything.
if it's a residential zone, and they
Yes.
came to us and, as it is, and said, I'm not a neighbor, I'm not expanding into this area, I want to do something new here that's equivalently sort of intensive as an industrial parcel, we'd probably have a slightly different reaction.
What
at
I'm
least.
saying is that Rockport Granite, if that were rezoned to 907, Rockport Granite could put its entire crushing operation back there.
Right, and I'm trying to separate, if it weren't the abutter that was approaching us for that, if it was someone new that had purchased it and just wants to cleanly change the zone for it, we'd at least say, well, you know, you bought the wrong parcel, right? I mean, that's how I would see it, as why did you buy a parcel in a residential zone if you want to do an industrial operation? Because it's in a butter, because it's a neighbor, I think it's a bit different though. It's somebody who has a vested interest in the neighborhood already.
I have another chance to speak.
Sure. Step up, please.
So, I think that he had said 2018 was the last time that there was problems after hours. So we want to be a good neighbor, obviously. I had no idea that there was an issue with the crushing when we brought a crusher in during the day to crush our waste up. So what we have done, we've insulated the buildings to quiet them down. And when we cut the stones, the first cut that we make, that part of it is waste. So it needs to be hauled away. So we have figured out a way to do that. And until this, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, I was on a business trip. Somebody was put on an excavator that shouldn't have been put on an excavator, and they were doing something that we do not allow there. So I took care of that situation, and that won't happen again. So with our waste, we put it in trucks and we haul it. The parts of the rock that we don't use, we have figured out a way to load it quietly, put it in trucks, and it gets hauled away. So I employ 45 or 50 people, and we definitely want to be a good neighbor. And we've got a lot of neighbors around us that I have really good relationships with. So I am willing to do anything that I can to mitigate, anybody's unhappiness around us. And I think that we're in 2024 now, so 18 to 24 with maybe a hiccup that I took care of shows that we have done that and will continue doing that in the future.
There was a comment, Joshua, that was submitted about dumping some slag and waste back in that area there. Is that taking place today? Rock,
What?
scrap rock, whatever that's called.
So the scrap rock that we take, there was an issue with the pile getting too big before we hauled it off. So that was taken care of with code enforcement.
And that was being put back on lot 133? That pile?
That was put on lot 131.
Okay.
Yes. So we don't let we haul it off before the pile gets bigger than what code enforcement wanted to see. And I did get a call from Scott on the call a couple weeks ago when I was gone, and I took care of that situation. And it won't happen again. So, yes.
I don't know if this is a fair question to ask. If you don't think so, then don't answer it. I'm wondering what was in your mind when you bought lot 133? What had you foreseen its need to be?
It was together. It was a package. I had to buy both of them, or none.
133 and which one?
131 and 133
Oh,
went up
okay.
to,
Oh, so you
for
had to-
sale together. I had to buy them
I
both.
see, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any?
Okay.
Thanks.
Can I respond to any exercise?
Sure. Please step up.
I appreciate the comments from Mr. Carl, but we've been hearing this for 10 years now. How he's going to do everything he can to make things good, make things quiet, and it doesn't happen. Things continue to happen. He's going to take care of it. I took care of it. I'll take care of this. It doesn't happen. Now here we are looking at the possible expansion. So he has a larger area to store more stone, push it back. Now he can do even more with bigger excavators, more equipment, more noise. This isn't a good neighbor company. It has a proven track record of not being one. And that's what I'm trying to say here, is that opening the door to this is like a Pandora's box. And who knows what he's going to do with this property. He already said, well, he may put a building back there. Well, I'm sure he will put a building back there, and he's probably going to do more. Because I've been through this time and time again. So I do have a copy from 2020 of a listing of all the complaints and violations that were sent to Mr. Carl from Scott Bickford. Listing all the police record reports, OSHA penalty, all the things that this company's been involved in, to the detriment of the neighbors. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, my concern here would be that this is in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and even just the use of this property, lot number 133, what's put on lot 133 may not be as concerning, but just the fact that there would be maybe an expansion of the business, and it's a good thing that there's a business in Rockport that's thriving. That's a positive thing. But that business expanding in the middle of this residential neighborhood, I would be concerned with more storage area. That might mean that opens it up for more production and potentially more noise. Based on what I've heard tonight, the concerns and complaints that have been issued in the business over the past several years, it doesn't sound like, based on what I've heard, that there's a trend to improve it so that it's not as much of an issue any longer. So I would be very much concerned about changing the status of this property.
I think it's a big leap to rezone a parcel, especially going from residential to opening it up to industrial, so it's not the same kind of small step increment of one residential zone to another residential zone. This is a big change.
Yeah.
And I like to think of it not, what I think I was clumsily going with Tom was, this is going to be zoned for forever, you know, in effect, and it may be a different landowner, and it may be a different operation, so I'm kind of willing to disregard any noise complaints from the current neighbor, the current applicant, and think about it as just any kind of use that the zone allows on that parcel. Is that what was intended in the comp plan for this lot? And it seems like that line was struck on purpose between lot 131 and lot 133. And I feel like that it's not right for us to proactively change it to set the line somewhere else.
Sam?
I said, was the land that the MRC is currently on, was that always mixed, or was that residential too at one point?
That was changed.
From residential to mixed?
So I hear what you're saying there, Jeff. I just, in terms of making changes in that neighborhood, going from residential to mixed residential is something that we do and have done in the past. Like I said, the original intent was anything that was probably on 90. But like I said, when there's something that, I mean, obviously in that case, that's more of a community benefit than a business benefit, but it was the same thing. We made that shift very specifically, even though it butted it, you know, up against residential areas up and behind. You
Yeah, I don't know if that was that rezoned specifically for that purpose for MRC? It was specific, so that's a little different use of the land, MRC.
Yeah, but now, but if anything happens in the future and they sell that place and they move
Right,
it across.
it is rezoned. You're
it's
absolutely correct.
The same thing, like
Yep.
what Jeff's argument was.
Yep.
It has the ability to become anything that is available inside of that mixed residential zoning.
Right.
And so the idea that the 133 is somehow more intrusive into that neighborhood than the MRC's parking lot is, that piece I have more of a, you know, it's more of a leap for me to get to that piece than it is. Well, you know, if this was the lots that are, you know, 99 and 97 and coming up against that front set like the MRC does, it would be I think probably a different conversation around it, but it was one that we'd still probably have a difficult time rectifying with considering the size of the lot that's right next to it that goes further into that neighborhood than the one that's being asked for right now. So I don't have the same qualms, I think, shifting the zoning on that lot strictly from a, you know, what are we using it for and what is the disruption going to be? You said comprehensive plan very much talks about keeping rural places rural, but at the same time, it does talk about improving our business stretch, which happens to be right here and is, you know, this lot is within within 100 feet of the Route 90, so it's not like this is just way back stretched and way off of it. It's kind of inside that same envelope. So that's kind of the counter side of that.
Thank you. Rob, were you going to say something? Yeah.
What is it? What lot are they?
MRC, I think, is the,
Is it that, like,
one,
teal?
that one right there, that 101-100.
101, okay.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, I guess the flip side of that is, you know, have there been any complaints about MRC? It seems like a business that's not really affecting.
Well, no, it's a different business, but Jeff's point, or Sam's point
Could be
was that
sold off at
once
some
it's zoned,
point.
it could be used for anything.
And I wasn't present when the MRC was being developed and proposed, but I assume if that discussion had happened like it's happening right now for that lot, there would have been a compelling argument that, you know, tennis and ice skating isn't the kind of noise producer, and they would have said, yes, this is a new use, it's not a residential use, but it's a low-impact use. So I think they would have had a positive argument to present on it. I think I still would have taken the same position of, we're rezoning this, it could be anything, but then they would have countered with, yes, but it's this.
But it's this, yes.
And let me just say, as an aside, I think that's somewhat based on the way that our uses are defined in that table. Because I was looking at that, and a lot of it's based on what businesses we've had in the past, rather than looking forward as to putting in categories as to what we do in the future. So, that's a tough breakdown on the table. All right, anybody care to put a motion on the table? Sam?
Yeah, I'll motion to approve the application.
Okay, is there a second to that?
What is the motion? I'm sorry?
Motion is to approve the rezoning application as requested. Is there a second?
Doesn't seem like it.
There you go.
Okay, no second, so that motion dies. Anyone else want to try one?
Well, we have to move this off the table, right? So we
That
have to-
motion off the table?
Yeah, the motion's off the table.
Right.
The application, though, is, we still have to make a decision.
Well, we do, yes, yes.
We can't just let it die
No.
by.
No, no,
okay.
no.
So I'll make a motion to deny the request to change the zoning to 907.
I'll second.
Lot 025133.
Okay, motion by John, seconded by Jan.
Yep.
Further discussion on that motion? Okay, hearing no further discussion, put it to a vote. All those in favor of John's motion to decline the rezoning request? All right, and it's 6-0-0. Oh, I'm sorry, all those opposed, I'm sorry, all those opposed. Sam, sorry. 6-1-0.
There you go.
Thank you very much for your time.
Sorry,
No worries. Thank you.
thank you for coming in. Okay.
That's good. It's an interesting, make an interesting point.
Joe,
Yeah.
be right back. I just need to run to the restroom.
You want to take a quick bio break? Okay, let's take a quick bio break. Jeff, we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Do you want to be able to say anything or something? Jeff, I wasn't seeing it on YouTube.
There's some emails, notes, I forgot what it was, I'm sorry.
It's waiting.
Basic house, and the owner never moved in. And the question is, what happened to them?
Making difference. Yeah, cool. It was very messy.
Okay.
Jeff, we're gonna need, we're back on?
Yep.
Okay. All right, get Ryan down in the seat and we're ready to go. Okay, the next item on our agenda is to talk about proposed changes to the land use ordinance amendments. As many of you may know, over the last 6 months now, we've had a number of workshops. We've brought speakers in. We've looked at the requirements LD 2003. We've looked at changes. We've considered what other towns have done. We've had discussions amongst the board. And we, in the last 2 meetings, we started to refine some of the impact areas we thought that we ought to look at on the land use ordinance. And so those sections are outlined on the agenda tonight. And so the way I'd like to conduct procedurally the review of these sections tonight is that first we'll have public comment. We've received some written comments over the last week or two. Those have all been posted on the SharePoint. Board members have had a chance to review those. Thank you for those inputs, especially Bob. Thank you for your inputs. I know that took a lot of time, and there were some good comments in there, very constructive comments, so thank you for that. And so we'll give you a chance tonight here at the meeting to make comments. If you can, be as specific as possible about sections of the ordinance where your concerns lie so that we can consider them and look at how they might impact our decisions. And then after we receive the public comments, the board will then go into deliberation and discuss these sections one at a time. So for the board members, because we've been through these sections a number of times, I do not plan tonight on going through paragraph by paragraph as we've done in the past, but rather by exception. If you either had made comments, made a note, or have a specific concern in those sections, we'll talk about that. But we're not going to read every single word again as we go back through this.
Joe?
Excuse me, let me finish. What I'd like to do tonight is we've got sections or items A through G on the land use ordinance, and I would like to, we're not voting on this to approve it, but I'd like to just have a straw vote as to whether the board agrees that what we've reviewed with modifications is acceptable or if there's further action required. So we'll do that separately by sections, and hopefully that way we'll be able to knock off as agreed to a large number of sections and possibly have some that still require further effort that we need to go back and look at. So that's the plan for the procedure tonight. Public comment first. We talk about it section by section, by exception only, and end up there. Tom.
I had a question about the agenda. We have item number 7, and I was wondering, the review of the land use amendments, ordinance amendments, might take a considerable amount of time. The change of use, if we have people waiting for that, is that something that you would consider putting before changing the order of consideration?
Yeah, we've had that discussion, myself and Orion. Rock City was a late entry into the process here. I think they came in after the application due date.
They were right in the window, but
okay.
Was there anybody here from Rock?
They were. So we had talked and discussed, and they're comfortable with the continuance being issued to handle them at a later date.
Just a question.
So thank you for that input. We did think about that. So we're likely going to need to get back together here in the next week or two to look at that one if after we get through these ordinance revisions tonight. One of the considerations, though, was that these amendments, because of timing here on the calendar in getting these prepared to the select board and approved for a warrant, the timing is critical, and we did want to make sure that we did get through these tonight. So that's part of the reason for that. Okay, so.
Joe, I don't remember in your comments if you mentioned that the catalyst for all this was LD 2003.
That was a good part of the catalyst. And let me just say, with respect to LD 2003, there were some comments from the public that came in that suggested that maybe we ought to just forget about this, LD 2003, and not comply. As board members, when we take our oath, we're required to abide by the statutes and the Constitution of Maine. And so LD 2003 is legislation that's been passed down from the state government for us to apply in our local ordinances. We don't feel, and our attorney did not feel, that we had an option to deal with LD 2003. So that's why that's what we looked at. I think, though, that it's fair to say, and I think board members would agree, that all of the changes considered here are not driven by LD 2003, but we've tried to take a little bit more comprehensive look in considering changes to the way that housing is addressed in the land use ordinance. So thanks for that comment, John. Okay, so let's get started. Is there anyone from the public that would like to say anything this evening? Okay, so we'll go in order from my left to right. Richard, please step up to the podium.
Oh.
I think this might be the same one that we've seen in your email, which we can put up on the screen. We've got Richard's emails on the screen.
Yep, I can do that. Give me a second.
I'm Richard Remsen from West Rockport. There were a couple of things that Bob and I had gone over. It was a great effort in terms of trying to focus workforce housing in the town. The sheet that I gave you does a couple of things. There's a list at the back of all the vacant lots in town, and I know you've reduced the minimum lot size in the Harbor Village to 3,000 square feet. But if you look at the list of vacant lots, no lot that would be 3,000 square feet in the Harbor Village would be considered affordable or would be entitled to workforce housing. It's too expensive. So the other village areas you really have to focus on if you really want to do something. So my recommendation, one, is to reduce in the 902, the other villages, the minimum lot size to 3,000 square feet. The state requires 15,000 for a septic system on a lot, but you could handle that either through sewer or an easement to another property in order to keep this lot small, but to have the septic system someplace else. The other issue is the setbacks. So if you look at that drawing, or if you've seen the drawing, well, it doesn't show up easily there, but if you keep the setbacks the way they are now, and you have a small lot that's, say, 3,600 square feet, you can't build anything. It's not possible. So you do need to change the setbacks on small lots. And those lot changes would only be in the 901 and 902. So, for example, minimum side yard setbacks, 8 feet in both zones. Minimum side and rear setbacks for parking, 4 feet like it is in the 901, in the 902. And minimum front yard setback, 10 feet. All of those would help provide an opportunity for small lots that would be possible for affordable housing or workforce housing. So I think you need to expand the growth areas to include the 902 and have the same criteria as you do in the 901. That's it. A couple tweak things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any clarification questions on that, or are everybody okay with that? All right, good. Please step up to the podium.
Hi, Vic Steinglass, I'm in the village. Simple questions. What problems, I'm referring mostly to the rental section, was it F, Orion?
Yes, it is.
F, rental housing ordinance. What problems do Rockport residents have now that this is going to fix? And how is what you're proposing on that going to make Rockport residents' lives better? I don't see either of those there. Also, if you're looking to get affordable housing, workforce housing, putting up additional ordinances that include just not vacation rentals, but all rentals, is just putting another hurdle against providing rentals. And so I don't see that. I think what we have here is a blossoming of our bureaucracy. And I think that is what Rockport was never about. And that's it.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
I'm Claire Tully from Rockport. I would really like to second what Vic said about really where are the problems here. The introductory statement talks about, mitigating any issues that might arise beforehand. And it seems like a whole lot of regulation in the absence of, problems that have been documented. And tonight, as I've, watched you all deliberate very carefully in situations where there are problems and there are complaints and there are, documentation, I've seen you respond to that. Here, we seem to have a lot of regulation where we have something that is not broken, and that this could create a lot of issues and hardships for, for owners and also, potentially visitors to our town. The way that vacation rentals are described is in a very negative light, and that kind of surprises me because tourism is a big part of our local business, and a lot of tourists don't want to stay in hotels. They want to have a very personal experience staying with a resident, someone who knows the town, and that's a very strong trend. So I hope that there will be outreach to realtors and businesses about this, because I think it's fair to say both really opposed the regulation, the extent of the regulation last time, and I appreciate there's a little less than the previous one, but residents voted that down overwhelmingly. And so what has changed between now and then? I would also, I'm a little concerned, and I think others will be too. I can't give you the exact section, but talking about making it a commercial use, to rent out your home if it's not your principal residence. And it seems to me that we have a lot of people that do rent out their homes. This is, we are here year round, and but there are other people that are not residents here, but they are, in the community. They contribute. They're philanthropic. They serve on committees, and a lot of them are looking to a time where they can come here full time. So I think it's unfortunate and very divisive to, and frankly, it feels a little discriminatory to me to treat our neighbors that are, not Rockport residents like us, because maybe they're spending part of their, time in another state, to treat them differently, say your use is commercial. I also, just two more things. The description of short-term rentals, there are so many carve-outs for, motels, hotels, B&Bs, inns that are, all doing rentals that are less than 30 days, because that's how it works in the summer. I mean, tourists are not looking to come here for 30 days. most of them. Certainly not if they're working. And there are a couple categories that I don't even really understand, and maybe this could be addressed. Like, it talks about excluding seasonal rental accommodation complexes. I'm not even sure what that is. It didn't seem to be defined. Or residential rental accommodations. I know last time there was a differential treatment for the Samoset. And, frankly, that was upsetting to a lot of homeowners. So I hope that we're really even-handed about this. It would seem unfortunate if we favor businesses over residents that are just, trying to pay their taxes and stay in their houses. And then finally, I'd like to say, with respect to additional dwelling units, obviously this is very new, and a lot of municipalities are unhappy about how this has happened, and I totally get that. But I think to come back and say, right out of the gate, ADUs cannot, be used for short-term rentals or vacation rentals, I think that's short-sighted, because I think that the use of our properties, changes during our lives. So I could see someone building an ADU for grandma, so she can age in place. And then, when grandma passes away, like that family having made that substantial investment, an additional dwelling unit is not cheap to build. They can never use it, for short-term rental ever. I mean, that just seems very restrictive to me. So I hope we don't go with these very broad restrictions. And also that we really do our research as well, because I don't think it's fair to say that that vacation rentals by residents is turning Rockport into a sleeping town in the summer. And that's really, that's the lead into this. So that's unfortunate. I would just urge you to be even-handed about this and to realize that you're dealing with the property rights of individuals that have a lot invested in their houses and their ability to use their houses to remain in this town and, have their kids and grandkids here. We'd like to see more of that. So thank you for your efforts. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Marcia?
I wasn't really going to speak, but I can't help myself. First of all, you guys are so good at what you do. I sit here tonight and other times.
I'm sorry, could you please introduce yourself? I'm not sure.
Oh. Okay, I'm Marcia Steinglass. I am the wife of Victor Steinglass. We've lived here for a half century. We moved here when we were 25 years old. Vic was on the zoning board for 17 years. I am currently on the library committee and just left the comprehensive plan committee because I don't feel like we do anything. I don't want to be on a committee that does nothing and never gets, and actually, there's more to that, but that's okay. I would like you to tell me where in LD 2003, which is actually being taken to court by many towns in the state, talks about limiting short-term rentals. I have looked it over. I'm not an attorney. I do have an undergraduate degree in classical languages. I do have a graduate degree in library and information science. I see nothing in LD 2003 about short-term rentals. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think that, Eric, you have anything to say on this subject, or? No. Okay. Very good. Okay, so with that, then we'll close the public comment section and let the board begin deliberation on these sections. So let's go through them in order as they are listed on the agenda. We'll look at Section A, the planned unit development first. And so I'd ask everybody to keep the comments you've just heard in mind as we go through these sections. Okay, so, on the document here, so there are comments that are on here. There are considerations based on what you've heard that you might want to look at, other modifications here. But we're not gonna go through and read every single paragraph, only, the ones that the board members direct us to, make and look at modifications for. So, as we go through this, the first comment here. There's nothing to say that can't be removed, even if it's right. Is that yeah, that's a question.
Where are you, Joe?
I'm looking at the comment right on the right-hand side here on the screen.
Are you way at the top?
If I may,
Yeah.
if I may
Go ahead.
address my comments.
Go ahead, Jen.
I made, as I usually do, a bunch of comments, and none of them, absolutely none of them need to be talked about. They are all fairly trivial, grammatical, or obvious sorts of things. When you go through, when Orion goes through to polish up and take a look, if there's something he likes, he can do something. If he doesn't do it, I'm not worried about it. So there's no time, there's no point to spend much time on something that I have that I've
Okay.
commented, unless you want
Okay,
clarification.
so I'll tell you, yes, I'll tell you what, why don't you then call our attention to the ones that you do have strong concerns about, okay? The
Okay.
notes?
Fine.
Some of those may just be grammatical, some of those may be more significant. So I'll let you call our attention. Okay, so let's go ahead down, Orion, if there's any other notes or suggestions here. Okay, I had a question on this one. I'll just comment on this quickly. The board may require the applicant to prepare a plan to show possible layout for conventional subdivision application. I'm just questioning why we would do that ever.
It might help in the calculation of the base density, the base level density calculation that has to be provided.
As a
But-
comparison.
Yeah, as a comparison, but also, you know, to, like, if it's a development that might, you know, be, let's say some abutters come up and they're like very concerned, well, this is what they could do as a traditional, and this is what they're proposing under a PUD. So it could just give the visual comparison of the difference.
Okay, so that's a may, it's not a necessity, though.
No,
that
no,
requirement.
no,
Okay.
it's not a necessity.
Okay, so that removes my comment. Thank you for that. Jan, any,
Nope.
just a grammatical?
Just a hyphen, that's
Okay.
all.
Good. Those are just, yeah, chapter and section, Bob called that out too. We need to be careful about what we refer to sections of the
Yeah, as
land use
I got
ordinance.
through further, I
Yeah.
realized when things are, when it's a chapter and when it's a section.
So I think we just need
You
to
could ignore
strike.
this, I think
Yeah.
we
Sure.
got it pretty well.
Agreed. All right. Jan?
This is a real live question. The additional unit, does it have to, is it required that it be one thing or another, or can it be either affordable or market rate, depending on what's better for the developer?
Either, whatever the developer
Fine.
wants to use it for.
That's all. So it can be either. That's fine.
So actually, I couldn't get on checkpoint, but I had a question about this. So the goal is to encourage affordability with this section, I would imagine.
Finish what you're saying, and then I'll answer.
I guess, so I look at, number one, and it makes a lot of sense. But then 2 and 3, it just seems like such small peanuts for the creation of it, for then allowing a new dwelling unit.
Mm.
And to me, I think, well, why on earth would anyone do number one when they could just do 2 or 3? And I just don't know if we're essentially in including more than kind of including things that aren't necessarily like our goals in this, you know, the PDs. Are we kind of shooting ourselves in the foot? Does that make sense?
It makes sense what you're saying. I'm just waiting for you. Are you
And I
getting
guess,
everything?
and then I'll preface this by saying, you know, I don't know if this is like standard practice with, you know, with these particular units. Like, is this just like standard kind of development protocol? You know, that
Okay.
offerings.
So I
But
understand
to
the
me, I'm
question.
just reading it and like, what developer would ever do an additional affordable unit when they could just put $5,000 in the pot? And
So this one, number 3, that's 5,000 per dwelling unit, if they wanted to take advantage of that. So that's a different
It still
equation.
seems like
It's small, but I mean, the goal is to increase housing stock. In order to utilize a PUD, a percentage of that entire development has to be affordable per the provisions outlined in what we've proposed. So within this increased density, we're saying you can increase your density, but you know, these are the options that you can choose from in order to increase your density above that.
And maybe no one else has an issue with it. It just seems like, should we be steering this in a very, you know,
So the-
specific direction, or are we fine with just kind of?
Based on the development, they may have different avenues available to them that they would be motivated to comply with. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't have a lot of experience with PUDs.
Yeah, I don't really know either. It was just a thought as I was reading it. And I'm happy to keep it how it is.
Are you satisfied with that answer, or?
Yeah,
You
I
wanna
mean,
change something?
it was just throwing it out there to the group. I didn't know if.
Well, I mean, I will say that we talked about this during one of the workshops where we went through, and the one where we shifted it from saying affordable versus, you know, just a different dwelling unit. Versus market rate. Like we went through all that and said, look, if we just say dwelling unit, when we get to the end, we'll have the percentage that has to be, you know, by law, affordable workforce, whatever you want to call it. But what we're trying to do is increase the density with this and try to give them things that will increase the density of the piece. Not all of them will work for every site, so we try to give them an option to increase those pieces, and we did use those incentives to try to drive some of the things that we were looking for, like, you know, buried utilities and things like that. So, I mean, this is absolutely driving it across. Now, some of them are easier to get to than others, for sure, but that was also part of it. So, yeah, I mean, some of them might work for some might not
So
work
if
for the
that's
others.
the intent, then
That was,
then,
and we were
yeah,
pretty, so we went through and deleted some that, you know, like we said, were off topic, so to speak, and things we weren't trying to drive. So these are the ones that survived that process.
And so if I could just comment on my note there on number 3, I thought maybe we talked about this last time also. Is there any minimum on what recreation space they would need to provide to get that credit for an additional unit?
I think that process is gonna really be down to the conversation with the planning board. So
That's what I was gonna say.
any
So
developer,
subjective.
any developer that's gonna be utilizing this, they're going to do a pre-application. They're gonna walk through it before they really draw up those plans, so that they have a pretty good idea on where this is gonna land.
Okay, so I usually like to have it nice and tight, that we could rely back on the land use ordinance for things, but you're saying this one will be at our discretion.
In the beginning, yes, mainly because every other municipality I've looked at, they don't have a finite formula to say, you've got 10 units, therefore you gotta have this much space or this other,
Okay.
in lieu of.
Okay, it's at
And
our discretion.
Well, yes, and I did talk about this with our town attorney, and he was comfortable with the wording of it,
Okay,
so.
all right, done.
Okay. Okay.
Grammatical. John?
Well, this is basically the same question you had, Joe, of, you know, if we're using phrases like a pedestrian amenity, what, you know, would we all agree that that is what it is? and it's language that is very subjective. So as long as we're
Sure.
comfortable with it, but
I'll give-
formal access to public transportation.
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So let's say there's a development and one is, they're gonna do the pedestrian amenity is gonna be a sidewalk, but the other one is gonna be a multi-use trail out in the woods that they have. Like, is that the amenity portion? So they're gonna have to convince you that that is the amenity. But if we come in and say pedestrian amenity is one thing, then we might deter developers from utilizing it.
Right, but 25 feet of sidewalk is not gonna hit the bar, or we're gonna wait and take a look at that?
I think they'd have a hard time convincing this board that, hey, I put 25 feet of sidewalk in, therefore that's a pedestrian amenity. Connecting to what? I
Okay.
mean, I don't think that argument is gonna stand a lot of ground.
And my next question is, formal access to public transportation, which, do we even have public transportation?
Well, the bus stop that stops at the gas
Concord
station,
bus,
the Concord
at the gas
bus.
station.
That is
That's
one.
public transportation?
I went through the same topic a couple months ago.
Okay,
It is.
I'll let it rest, but I was like, okay, I guess, but.
But if you put too form of a definitive answer on it, the formal access, let's call it a bus stop. You're putting a bus stop in. Well, is the bus stop gonna actually stop there, or should you actually connect to an area that's better? Like, you know, this allows us to have a conversation of what that is really gonna be.
So there's things left to the board's discretion in this area, but I just think that before we see our first PUD, we better go through some examples and understand
Sure.
a little better how they work.
Sure.
Because we use common sense as to what we think is reasonable on some of these things, but that may be far from the truth.
Mhm.
So,
Well, if Phil's happy with it, I'll go with it, but it's kind of vague language.
The town attorney is happy with it.
I think, as I recall, Bob flagged some of these too, these definitions.
He did.
Yep.
I have a suggestion for formal access. That is, you simply, if you hit see more, you'll see my comment that says, rather than formal access, why not put sheltered access?
What's that mean?
I thought you were done with it.
So that you could stay on there in the
Deleted.
rain or in the snow and wait for your bus. A simple thing like that, that outlines where a bus stops and shelters you.
I don't know about that one.
It's just a suggestion.
So it sounds like these have been left purposely vague, but, so that we have discretion to decide what's right.
I think that's the best.
Okay.
Joe, do we, Bob gave us some pretty detailed stuff. Do we want to?
Well, yeah, and so we need to figure out how Bob gave us some real good material. Some of it, a lot of it is editorial grammatical things, references and things like that, but there is some other good substantive material in there too. And so what I think we ought to do is, I know Orion has incorporated some of those already, some of Bob's comments. I think we need to go back through all of Bob's comments, and the board needs to see whether they were changed or if there was a reason that we didn't include those
So I
comments.
can make a comment to that right now. on
Yes,
it.
go ahead.
So right like anywhere you see currently on, like a new edit.
Is there a color?
Yeah, so this one is one that I did. A number of these.
The
I
red?
did
Red?
as well. Yep.
Okay.
So he had highlighted some areas. This one in particular, he had brought up that, an application parcel, like, what is that? Maybe you want to take it a little bit further to say final site plan approval. So I've taken it to just say on the site plan, which would be that application comes before you, that 10% of the addition would be indicated on the site plan for that approval. So there's no confusion with
Okay,
that.
so the red is what you've gotten from Bob.
I've incorporated the majority of, the only one that I haven't incorporated is the section and chapter issues, mainly because I need to reread it all and make sure should be a section or a chapter portion.
Okay, so I don't know that we're gonna have enough time here tonight to verify each of Bob's comments.
That's fine.
I propose that you maybe take Bob's list and just kind of go down and tell us, comment on which ones have been included, which ones have not.
Sure.
And the board could decide if we agree with that. And that's gonna
good.
be outside of this meeting, after this meeting.
Sounds good.
All right, and that's just kind of a final tie-off. I think Bob would agree, a lot of those were not substantive to alter the entire document, but make it much clearer in a lot of cases, the references.
I was not trying to make any policy arguments at all, because that's.
No.
That's your problem.
Right,
Very
right.
technical argument.
I didn't sense that.
Yeah, I think punch up the language a bit.
Right, thank you. So we're gonna go back and look through those. We're not gonna get through it tonight. I didn't have enough time to get through it when I saw it, but we'll do that. I wanna make sure we capture those. Okay, go on.
John, you were good with that. Joe?
Oh, I think that's just, I think you should. Just
for it
pull
to
it
be
out, that's all I was
indented.
trying to say. You got it indented incorrect.
There you
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's correct.
Oh,
Yeah. It didn't make sense the other way. For next, oh, that's you. Height limitations on what? On buildings?
yeah.
Oh.
I think that the next time we have a go-round on things, that's something that we may want to talk about, is our current height standards.
Okay, is that in this section? No, it's
Right,
not.
right now, it
Just kind
just
of-
says the height
Oh,
requirement.
it does, okay,
shall
I
No.
got you, that's where it came
No,
from.
no,
Okay,
not on this round.
all right, you want to make it higher or lower?
I would make them higher, yeah.
I talked about that with somebody during one of our workshops, and I thought they said that the 34 was sufficient
Well-
for the types of projects they were looking at, but we could look at that again.
Yeah, yeah.
Where is chapter, okay, so you caught section, chapter there.
Mhm.
Okay, and I know Bob was talking about referencing a specific section, this is shoreline zoning. I don't know if there's multiple sections or not, but.
No, his was to replace section with chapter.
Yeah, but I thought he also said, I thought it said that also referred to the high level, 1400, no, maybe I misunderstood it.
No, there's a couple of cases.
Okay.
It was in section so.
Yep. Okay,
Okay.
I thought there was more.
Right.
All right, good. Okay, so, that is the PUD section. Anybody have any other comments in their own notes from before? Nothing this way, nothing that way, I hear nothing. Okay, so again, not final, not formal, but everyone as a straw vote in concurrence that this section is ready to go forward.
Yes.
Do you want formal straw vote?
Yeah, formal straw vote. So I see, okay, 7-0. Okay, good. So, other than looking for some of Bob's comments, we're done with this. So let's move on to the next section. Affordable housing. So a lot of these look grammatical.
Yeah, mostly.
Okay. Have you incorporated these as you delete them? Have they already been considered?
If they're to be incorporated, I left them. If they're
Okay.
not to be incorporated, I deleted them.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Can we-
One of the things that strikes me throughout all of the work here is the constant reference to affordable housing. And I thought Bob's introductory comment was right on. There's a lot of negative connotations to that.
Yep.
But, I mean, they talk about that in 2003.
Yeah. I brought this up with our town council as well. You know, should we call it workforce housing? Should we call it affordable housing? You know, where are we going to land on it? Because it's controversial, and he even acknowledged it's controversial. But with LD 2003, it does clearly state affordable housing, and he encouraged Rockport to have an affordable housing section. That's why this is kind of worded the way it is. It's not so like exacting, but
It's
it
not
gives
easy
us
to
a
escape.
section. It's not
Well,
easy to escape, but it outlines a section where we can rely to for affordable housing.
It also aligns with all the other
Correct.
agencies that are involved with these kind of issues.
Correct.
So,
But I do believe that affordable housing and workforce housing are two different things, and they're
Yeah.
defined
I thought
differently.
they have two different
Yeah.
They are.
Yes.
definitions, right?
They are. It's a, if you want to change to workforce, it's a discriminatory term.
Yeah, well, affordable housing is a very specific definition, I believe, from the state and LD
Yes,
2003. And I think that's very tight criteria. I think there's a level, whether you want to say it above or below, but that covers other people beyond those people looking for affordable housing, those individuals that are looking for workforce housing that are gainfully employed, have good jobs, but just can't afford some of the expensive real estate. So,
If I could offer a suggestion, it kind of blocks what the geniuses in Augusta did in terms of the terminology, but in terms of how you present it to the voters, that's a different story. You might want to use workforce housing.
yeah. I agree with that, unless it is specifically consistent with the definition of affordable. And there are some requirements in LD 2003 for affordable, and so I think we agree. But it makes a difference what you call it with different groups also. So this is affordable section specifically. Jan, your comment?
Just trying to simplify the language. The other comment is just a sidebar, that's something that we should have available for builders.
A list of proven methods for builders.
Yeah, we
Okay.
say you have to have a proven method.
Okay.
We should help them find proven methods. Suggestions, that's all.
Okay.
Pretty vague. It's pretty vague.
Which is why I think we should help.
Anything further on this?
Well, I don't know if that's something you do within this section. I don't know what you were thinking, but that might be something that you do when somebody comes in with an application and try to help them out. Or you think it would be part of the document?
Well, no, the intent by using the word excess means that somebody is entitled to make a profit on their investment over a period of time. So the word excess means just exactly that. You could make, we expect you to be making a profit for an investment that goes over a time period, but we do not think that you should be making perhaps all of the profits. If you double, triple, quadruple your money, some of that should come back to the town. I don't have any idea how that's determined.
So, to the excess right there, that one would be handled internally, so that would be a condition on the approval.
That would be a negotiable thing.
It would be, but,
yes.
you know, if they came back to the town to say, hey, I can't sell it, I need to put it at the market value
Yeah.
to sell it, okay, well, those excess profits are what? So that would be, the
Yeah,
town council would be involved in
it's
that
a negotiable
process
thing.
as well.
Okay, I'm sorry, when I asked my question, I intended to be to the prior one. I was suggesting that that list of proven methods might be something outside of this document.
Yes,
That would
I
go-
think so too.
okay,
Oh, no, no.
It wouldn't be included.
I do
there.
not expect it
Okay.
to be included here,
Okay.
of course not.
Okay, and that's a reasonable idea.
Right.
Let's see, what's this?
Do you want this explained?
Is that just grammatical, kind of trying to
Well,
make it
I
simplified?
think that you don't need F and G. You could say renters and buyers need to have an income that qualifies, as I said in
Okay,
the
just-
comment. That's all.
At a previous meeting, we had tried to merge those and it was
Yeah.
getting conflicted.
Well, I'll
so
leave
we
it
just
to you.
kept them
That's
separate.
just a suggestion.
Yeah.
It's not a hill I'm willing to die for. Is there such thing as moderate income? Is that a definition? Is there a definition of that? Or is that,
Probably lots of
again,
definitions.
again, it's
Yeah.
just something that we take for granted that we can talk about.
John, you had a comment?
Well, just to clarify, it can't be any housing development organization. I think the intent was to make it a nonprofit housing organization. Am I correct in that?
Yeah,
I think
You
so.
are.
Was from our side.
Okay.
I just want to know where this formula came from, if it existed someplace else and you borrowed it, or you made it up.
No, this came from another municipality, and I vetted
Okay,
it by
no, that's all I wanted to
town
ask.
attorney.
Yeah, so I figured you didn't create this, not that you're not a really smart guy, but I figured you didn't write this all from scratch.
I
You
had
borrowed
I had a
some from
few.
pieces.
Oh, I definitely borrowed some.
Sure.
Okay,
That makes
there's
sense.
That's
no
fine with me.
recreating a wheel, but
That's fine.
everything that was done was also vetted by our town attorney.
Yep.
Not going in this blind. Okay.
Okay, so that's the end of the affordable housing section. Any other comments from anyone's notes? Anything else? Okay, seeing none, straw vote, all in favor of this one being completed and go forward? Okay, 700, thank you. Next section.
Okay. Now, just to make a comment quickly, this one, because it's existing, it's not as easy to clean up, so that's still why there's a bunch of red.
Jan? Can you just click that OK over there?
Yeah.
Commercial.
If you don't see any reason for changing it, just delete the comment.
Well, we can talk about it, but I mean, if there's a development and they have a garden in the middle of it, and there's, you know, the people that are the landlords or whatever you want to call it, like the people running the development, want to use that and then have a farm stand standing off of it that they use, like that's technically commercial agriculture, but it's still inside of kind of what you're dealing with. I think it would be covered by, we did this with the,
If you think that that is the only possibility, then I'm fine with not saying non-commercial, because I wouldn't mind if they had a farm stand.
right, I mean, I think it would be kind of hard to have anything more than that in terms of commercial agriculture in the middle of a clustered
Things pop
residential
into-
development.
Things pop into my mind. You know?
Okay.
All I saw
Got
was
it.
some of that open space being given over to corn, or something like that, so things pop into my mind,
I understand.
okay?
So, section 917 is a better way of saying that. It covers all of section 917.
And so
Because-
so that is meant to apply to everything within 917.
Well, I mean, right here it says cluster residential developments may allow uses described in land use table in section 917.
Well,
So
if you think it's good, it's okay with me.
I do. It is the board members, yeah. Okay.
So does I don't know what 917B is off the top of my head. That is just residential?
It's the residential section.
Just residential section, yeah. So it would seem reasonable to open it up to all of 917.
I don't have it in front of me.
Well, I think they have the same result either way, 917.
If it is, then that's fine.
It's still the applicable section of 917.
Yeah, we've already gone over my
Okay.
points, Ryan, you can get rid of them.
Right.
And that is it for extra comments?
That's the end? Okay.
Yes. And then just to bring up, so Bob Hall brought up the point of cluster developments being allowed in certain zones. So I added this bit, and I can put a table down here to add it to that land use table to add
That was the
the
one that was
SB,
missing, yeah.
for the 913.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments from notes? Nothing else down that way, okay. Straw vote that we're completed with this section review. All in favor? Tom, hand up? Oh, there is, okay. 700, thank you. Next section. Okay, so now, just to start this off, I know that you and Richard did have some conversations regarding some of the dimensions in these tables. Did you modify anything after your conversations that we didn't see last time?
So these highlighted bits here
are new?
Those are new, and that's what Richard had brought up on the screen.
Okay.
To reduce these setbacks down.
So let's see, that is in 901, 902?
901 and 902.
Okay. And that's, I think, yes, what he intended.
Yeah.
We really didn't discuss setbacks very much at our last workshops.
No, we didn't. But Richard did bring up a couple of points. If you do the math, and I did it, it does put it down to, I think if you had a 3,000 square foot lot, the buildable envelope is 800 square feet based on the current setback. So if we open those up a little bit, it allows more. So under this current one, I think, if I'm correct, it's 1,456 is the buildable envelope on that.
Sorry, Ryan, I'm working on the PDF. What are those numbers?
This one, so
10
these are
to-
being reduced to 8. So
8.
10 to 8, 15 to 8.
15 to 8, okay.
And in 902, the minimum side and rear setback being reduced down to 4. And then the minimum front yard setback is being reduced down to 10. And that matches the condos.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So the villages are consistent now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Jan, you had a comment up here. Anything? Jan? Did you?
If you don't say per building, then you could have 2 buildings with 2 families. It's called single-family housing. So it has to be, each building has to contain 2 or more families, or it's not a multifamily building. I mean, it's
okay.
just common sense. It's only 2 words.
I need.
I'm struggling to understand what the suggested change here is. Is it?
The minimum lot size in 902, I would make it consistent with the 901.
Sorry, we're on
the definition of multifamily. So, Jan, could you read what you suggest the definition to read as?
Me? Yes.
Yeah.
1 or more buildings used for residential occupancy by 2 or more families per building, each living independently of the other.
So a multifamily lot, could it be 2 separate
Could be
structures? Or
it could be
do they
2
have to be in
separate
one
structures.
structure?
It could be 20 separate structures. It has to have at least 2 families per structure. Otherwise, they're single-family residences. If you're defining a multifamily residence, you have to say that each building is a multifamily building.
So it's not one family per building.
It's not 1 family per building.
Yeah. I think I agree with that, yeah.
Thank you.
I guess it was so obvious that it was sometimes it needs stating.
Yeah.
should we be paying attention to
No,
your comments? or
these
those
are old ones we've
okay.
already discussed. I've just left them in there. They're more for.
Did you have something on the top of that table, Jeff?
No.
Oh, okay, I thought you had a question about dimensions.
Okay, here, the question.
This is about these.
Okay.
These changes.
So that's your comment? Where did that come from?
So
Suggest reducing.
we had discussed these highlighted sections. Jan made a comment on my comment.
Okay.
Right. That is, if we're reducing the setbacks so that you can build a larger house on a smaller lot size, I want to know if we really want to encourage more larger single-family residences on smaller lots. Is that really the intent here?
Mhm.
That we want people to build larger houses on these lots?
Mhm.
Well, then you want to make those setback changes only when there's going to be more than one dwelling.
So the intent is you only got 800 square foot currently. If this went through, you'd only have 800 square foot building footprint. That's not a very large home, but it's also not necessarily one that would get built. By decreasing those setbacks, you increase the availability of something being developed. Just the,
driveways and porches.
I understand. I understand. I just didn't want it to simply be, instead of 20-foot setbacks, we're making 10-foot setbacks, so your house, instead of being 50 feet wide, could now be 70 feet wide. If that's the result, I'm not in favor of it.
Well, for example, Rockland has 250 house lots that are on a tenth of an acre and less.
Yeah.
And their setbacks are even smaller. So people 100 years ago, before zoning, bought what they could afford. So these smaller lot sizes are gonna make the land more affordable, so somebody can build a more affordable home.
I have no problem, Richard, with if the lot sizes are being reduced, I have no problem with the setbacks being reduced comparably. That's fine. But it read to me like suggested reducing to allow for a larger house to be constructed with a smaller lot size.
This would only be in the 901 and 902 areas, not all
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That,
only in the growth areas.
Then I'm fine with it. Okay,
Yeah,
and now I understand.
Larger is also relative. I mean, larger house on a very
Yes,
small
I
lot.
understand. Right, okay, yeah, okay.
And the other thing is 800 square feet example, or whatever you said, that's only one floor. You go 2 floors if you need to also.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Okay.
Your comment there was still old?
Mhm.
Okay. Is that completed?
I
Yeah,
wanted
this
to
is satisfied.
discuss, the same, small lot size in the 902, so it's consistent with the 901.
Okay, let's go back up there. You want to go back up? And if you want to do that, could you please get up by, oh, you got a microphone now.
You got a
Okay.
microphone.
All right.
Just put it in front of Richard.
You're talking about just the minimum lot size
Minimum lot size in 902, consistent with 901.
to reduce the 7,000 down to 3,000.
Yes.
902, so that would just make it consistent with 901.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, is there much of a difference between lot sizes in the different villages? I've never looked at that. I wonder. Some of the villages outside the harbor village may even be bigger lots to start with.
I think both 901 and 902 have a good portion of smaller
They
lot
do?
sizes
Okay.
than this. I think the mix is probably comparable.
Okay.
I couldn't put an exact number to that for a ratio.
Okay. Okay, so Richard was suggesting that the 902 minimum lot size with sewer be decreased?
To be consistent with 901.
How does everybody feel about that? You okay with that, making the two village, or the villages consistent?
I think it's fine.
Okay, Jeff, John?
Yeah, so
Sam? Good?
I'm with it.
Tom? Good?
Yeah.
Rob? Okay.
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 While we're on that topic, I just need to run down here to this. To reduce this down.
What's that? Single-family dwelling with public sewer.
Yeah. Inevitably, arguably it's the same thing as above, but and the land use attorney and I were kind of having a conversation right now of what is the first table and what is the second table. Is that really for commercial use and whatnot? So I don't want to confuse anybody right now, but
What was the what is the difference between the two lines we're looking at? That
right
you-
now, if you wanted to do a single family dwelling, you would have to conform to this
Okay, and what were we looking
And-
at previously?
minimum lot size. This is just minimum lot
Oh,
size,
yeah,
period.
yeah,
So if you had a commercial and you're a 902, your minimum lot size is.
yeah.
So.
Yeah, why wouldn't they be consistent?
This has already been satisfied by Phil.
You're gonna delete those?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm just leaving this here for.
And so
mental
those two families just fall under multifamily now?
They fall into multifamily.
Because
Yes.
definitions were very similar.
Correct.
Sorry. That was banging my ear. Did you kick the mic?
I kicked the mic.
Kick the mic.
You're supposed to drop the mic, not kick it.
All right. So that's the end of 9.
Okay.
That's it of 918.
All right. General dimensional requirements. Okay, do we feel comfortable that we've got all of the input considered that we've seen here? Yeah. Okay, all right. Straw vote, all in favor of this section going forward, being complete? 700, thank you. All right, next section. Oh, this is pretty benign. So this just puts in the words a lot of what you had in the table. changes.
And what's being moved from the table into these sections. That's an old comment of mine. Okay. So no new.
Okay. Proposal words in section 900. Any other comments on that from anybody's notes? John, you look like you're looking at something. You okay?
I'm good.
All right. All right, see no comments. All in favor of this one moving forward?
Number 5.
5.
Yep.
700. Okay, thank you. Next one.
I think it dawned on me that 30 days is an arbitrary number. It's not a month, because most months are not 30 days. And that we ought to think here about 4-week vacations as the maximum here, 28 days instead of 30 days. Nobody rents, people rent weeks at a time. They don't rent 30 days. So if the minimum is 28 days and you want to rent a month, then it's fine. If the minimum is a month and they want to rent for 4 weeks, you're saying they can't do it.
So this definition, it's really just putting those differentiations between short-term rental, seasonal rental, long-term rental. That's really all that is. And 30 days is pretty common for seasonal
Oh,
rentals.
I know it is. I know it's common.
Okay.
I just think it's wrong.
Okay.
So, you do as you wish.
I can't argue over 2 days either way.
That's why I like you, Joe.
Make it 28, make it 30. I've seen 30 as a common reference.
What do you got, Eric?
Of course it is.
No. No, that's just what was discussed and what came up with, but I guess, do y'all feel one way or another?
Sorry, hang on real quick. For the record, the question was whether or not long-term rental should be 1 year versus 6 months.
Yes.
Sorry, it wasn't on the mic, and I just want to make sure everybody heard it.
Well, yeah, I'm fine with the one.
I do have a
Attaboy.
comment on that, why it should be 1 year, and that is, I have a number of friends who have come and moved here and find that the only houses they can rent, they have to move out in May and can't get back into until September, because over the summer, they're rented for $10,000 a week. And it strikes me that that is really hard on school teachers or people that come here, that a long-term rental ought to be a place that you can live in permanently, not that you have to move out of every summer.
Well,
So
what you
I
did-
think 1 year is appropriate.
Yeah, and what you described, Jan, is a seasonal rental in
That's right.
my opinion.
That's right. So I don't think 6 months is good enough for a long-term rental. I think a year is.
Okay, so as we look at definitions here, the other thing that comes to mind here is that with our medical center, there are a number of traveling nurses, and those traveling nurses typically get gigs of 3 months minimum at a stop. So I don't know how that fits into this. It's
But
not
that-
long-term.
Seasonal.
They're not really seasonal rentals,
No.
renters.
But, so they might contact the landowner and say, I'm only here for 3 months, can I rent your place for 3 months only? They might have to pay a higher rate, but it's not an uncommon request.
Yeah.
And those healthcare workers are usually getting their housing through the hospital though, right? And the
Mm.
hospital
Yeah.
has a long-term rental agreement usually with the
Mm-mm.
properties.
Yeah, the individual resident
No?
may leave.
I know some
Okay.
houses around me that have been rented for that purpose.
Okay, stand
Yeah.
corrected.
Yeah, no.
Never mind. Seasonal rentals they are.
Okay, so there's a definition that kind of fits into.
Eric, does that satisfy your question?
Well, yes, but
You're gonna have to get,
Just don't kick
I'm
it.
getting the microphone back. Okay. So, yeah, that answers the question for that reason, but when you look at things like the city of Portland that are putting in a rental board and they're defining what landlords can do with their property, are we going down a slippery slope by defining these specific times, and are we going to end up in that similar situation? I mean, because if anybody's following Portland's board, it's not fun. And they've put a lot of restrictions on, and my only concern here is if you start saying, well, this is this, are we setting ourselves up where we're going to have a compliance board that's going around saying, well, you rented it for 20 days instead of 30 days, or you rented it for 9 months instead of a year? Are we falling or putting ourselves into a bind by doing this? I'm not saying that would happen, but once it's in an ordinance, somebody's got to follow it and somebody's got to enforce it.
sure.
So you got to think about that. I mean, we could end up looking like Portland, where you just tick off all the landlords and they say, well, screw it, we're going to set the rates, and when the term's up, out you go. Somebody else comes in because I want to get that maximum rate. And that's what they're doing in Portland. It didn't solve anything. It just causes a lot of turnover in the rentals. So
Okay,
just be
so-
careful with that.
I understand what you're saying, Eric, and I agree with that. What we're looking at right here is just section 300. We're defining these. The real question is what we do with these differently
Right.
as we go down below.
I just want to say,
Yeah.
if you put a definition in place and you tell me
It
that
should
I
be
got
for
to
a
rent
reason.
something
Yep.
for 1 year,
Yep.
and I can only find somebody for 6 months, well, what do? I'm sorry, I can't rent to you because I can't do 6 months, or I have to do a long-term rental for a year, or they can only stay 10 months and I get in trouble because I didn't rent it for 12 months. Is that going to limit what we can rent? I mean, we're specifically here to increase housing, and I'm not saying that there shouldn't be some definitions, but once you put the definitions in an ordinance, we're stuck to enforcing them. And who's gonna enforce it?
So we've got two rental definitions here, a long-term and a seasonal, it looks like.
Yeah.
1
This
year
doesn't
and
I
30
mean-
days.
This doesn't seem onerous to me.
Well, yeah,
There's
that's,
just
I mean-
two categories.
Are we getting into public comment, or are we?
no, I'm just want you to think about it, because it is just something that could happen. It's happened in Portland. I mean, I have a place in Florida. Yes, if I do it as a seasonal rental, it's 30 days, but that's the definition of the HOA, not by the definition of the town, the county, or the state. And we're, as a town, now defining what a seasonal rental is.
But we're defining it as a minimum of 30 days.
Right. I get it.
So if somebody wants to rent an apartment for 10 months,
Yeah,
they
then
can
you could
do
be a
it, they
third.
can do it
Okay.
as a seasonal rental.
All right. I'm just a concern.
I understand it's a concern, but I'm not quite sure that I think it's as serious a concern as you do. Explain to me.
Right. I'm just using Portland as the example, because once you start down that slope, you could get tenants saying, well, we need to do what Portland's doing. You know?
But if you want to avoid the slope, then you have to simply say, anybody can rent for whatever they want to rent for.
Okay, that's
And
fine,
we
as
don't
long
wanna
as.
we don't want to do that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we're close to Portland. I don't think we want to be close to Portland.
I
We
know.
certainly
I'm
don't.
just
Yeah.
using it as an example because
Yep.
I deal with landlords down there as some of my clients,
Yep.
and it's very tricky. And we don't want to get into that same
Yep.
cycle of
Understood.
turning this over.
Understood.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can leave that.
I'll leave it. Close enough.
We should just move your chair.
Okay, so with definitions, we okay with those two categories on rentals? I think what's more important is what we do with the two categories down below, but. Go ahead. Principal residence, we define, and rental housing unit. We must use that somewhere that we defined it. Okay, go. So Jan's comment there, is it possible to qualify any of these samples?
It's not legal to get a voter registration card or a driver's license if you live someplace for less than 6 months plus 1 day. That's the federal law.
It's not legal.
For tax purposes, you have to live more than 6 months someplace. I have any number of friends who are here for under 6 months, minus 1 day, so they can live in Florida for 6 months plus 1 day and have no property tax that they have to pay, or income tax that they have to pay. So you can't just say, well, you in order to, these examples, I think, that you've used are not good examples if you want it to be any length of time. You have to live there most of the year.
So you're.
I think so. From an enforcement standpoint, I wouldn't be able to prove that. What I can prove, if your principal residence is this here, you have a tax return, you have a driver's license, voter registration card, that's provable. Saying, oh, okay, now prove that you've been here X number of time. I couldn't do that.
Nor could anybody.
Okay.
I can't prove I live where I live, except every night, if you show up there I am.
Okay.
That doesn't prove that I live there.
Shouldn't it just be based on tax returns? Because we're talking about people with multiple residences, right? I think legally, wherever they say on their tax returns is where they're residing.
That's their principal residence.
Yeah, I mean, voter registration, you could choose where you want to vote. Same thing with driver's license, I would imagine.
Sure, this is an and/or. This is 3 options.
Have you talked to Phil about this one?
Yes.
Yeah, and
Phil-
he
Phil's
agrees with the
fine.
words that are there?
Phil's fine with the wording of it. Bob brought up the grammatical error of this, so
Well, if Phil's happy, I'm happy, because he's smarter than I am about this.
Okay.
okay.
Okay. Since we have no section 816 or 17, or 18, we ought to say so. So that people don't say, what happened, I'm missing pages.
Just add intentionally left blank.
Yes, intentionally
Okay.
left blank.
I mean, I can add that in.
Yeah. Thank you.
John?
Well, this is just, I've reread that a couple times and trying to think of the practical nature of it. And if somebody's in violation, are they immediately restricted from renting it?
No, there's a time period in which they have to correct that violation.
In a 3-month period, right?
This violation shall
It just says it's restricting them from renewing their rental housing registration. It's not saying,
So it spells out in here how that violation works and the notices of it, and if it's not, then the initial violation is 3-month period, you're out of it.
all right, if you feel it's addressed, I'm fine. We can move on.
Okay. Does anybody else on the board have an issue with it? Before
I was just trying to give it enough teeth to where, Scott's got direction on.
He's read over this, and as has Phil.
Okay.
They both feel comfortable with it, that they can do something with it if ever the need was to arise.
Right,
And
moving
some of
on.
the wording has been modified per his suggestion, Scott's the code enforcement officer.
Okay.
Okay.
This is taken care of, yeah. Good for that.
John, let's type of. John?
It's the same kind of question, because it says may revoke, or, just want to make sure, Scott's got enough authority to do what needs to be done, and it's,
Yeah, there's a lot of steps in that process, so the may was used for that leniency on it.
okay. And it's not a permanent revocation, if they've got recurring violations, does that mean it's can it be permanent?
I wouldn't say it would be permanently, because, if you own it and you're the problem with it, then the revoking of it could be a period of time, could be permanent, but if it sells, it wouldn't be lifelong with that parcel.
Yeah, okay. All
And I
right,
think that all is gonna have to come through that notice and a hearing.
okay, just so, like I say, as long as it can be addressed,
Yes.
and, all right, good.
Okay, that's the end of it.
I think the title there is not correct. It's not chapter 917. It's chapter 9,
Yes. it's-
section,
it's
section 917.
It's section 917.
Yeah,
Yeah, so all of those will get cleaned
okay.
up.
Okay. Okay.
And to be
Any-
clear, this is allowing short-term rentals in all zones except the industrial.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, straw vote. Any other notes anybody has? Any other comments? Hearing nothing. straw vote in favor of moving this forward? 7-0-0. Okay, thank you. Next. 7. All right.
That language, A through G at least, that's mostly from the state.
Mostly, yes, and that's what is currently in the land use ordinance.
It just went down.
You okay?
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Did I answer your question, Jeff?
You did. It's kind of clumsily written, and I was just not going to pin it on you. It's hard to read as are these exclusive qualities as restrictions, or are they inclusive? And I think adding the or helps in A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think?
So I didn't write the note in here, but I've got a comment on this section, and we talked a lot about this, I know, last time at the end of the meeting, 816.2. And I had proposed adding some additional restrictions on it. One of the ones that I had proposed adding on here was the statement that either the primary or the converted accessory dwelling unit shall be occupied by the owner of the property as its primary physical residence. That didn't end up on here. I would rather see the statement that I just covered on here in place of H.
And remove that? So if, so remove short-term rental and put that in place?
Well, yeah, don't do it yet. I'm just suggesting that, again, I'll read it. Either the primary or the converted accessory dwelling unit shall be occupied by the owner of the property as its primary physical residence. And so, I think what that does is just helps control the flow of the property being a lights-out community where there are not a lot of people that live here year-round, and that there are, at least in the primary dwelling unit. The whole purpose of an accessory dwelling unit is to build it in addition to your primary unit. And
Right.
so if you don't live in your primary unit, how could you have an accessory dwelling unit?
That's right.
I don't understand that. So one of the two, maybe your life changes, as some people suggested, over time, and maybe you move into the smaller accessory dwelling unit, but you don't just abandon the property. So anyway, that's what I would propose, and I think that H probably needs to be addressed more broadly in a different venue.
It's fine.
So
How does everybody
how do
feel?
people feel about that?
I like it.
I don't see how it can be, I don't see how you could ever enforce that over time,
Which one?
what you're saying.
What I'm saying?
Yeah. And same thing with ADUs shall not be used as short-term rentals. How do you know it's even an ADU?
Well, through that, the rental section we just went over, they would have to register, and they'd have to identify where they're at and what they're doing on that. Is it this, or are they doing the ADU?
Well, I can think of a lot of different scenarios where ADUs are constructed because LD 2003 says wherever there's a.
Anywhere.
Anywhere,
Yeah.
any residence.
Yeah, and that's.
Where there's a residence there, you can build an ADU.
Right.
And you can either have it inside, attached, or separate. When the building changes hands, what happens? I mean, all the circumstances could change from the initial one. You know, it's not gonna be BlackRock necessarily buying it up and turning it all into short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't see, to me, that it's a basic problem with LD 2003. I mean, this whole business of ADUs just creates this necessity to try to construct restrictions, and I don't see how the restrictions are gonna work over time.
Yeah, but if we don't do something, then we've got a bigger problem. So, that's what this legislation introduced. I like Joe's amended language.
I like the spirit of it. I'm wondering if the primary residence, so that goes back to the discussion about it's where the person votes or has their driver's license or pays taxes. Is that right, Joe?
Right.
So
I think that's the way we defined it.
yeah. So if you had a family that had a mother-in-law and they only lived on that property 5 months out of the year, they would not be able to use that ADU because they're not voting in Rockport.
Yeah, that's a pretty odd circumstance that you put there. I don't know how many of those there are in Rockport.
I don't know.
You could, yeah, I'm sure you could figure out something that would be in conflict with it, yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, if they were if they were living here in a primary residence, they wanted to create a mother-in-law ADU apartment, they can create an ADU for that purpose. And if the mother-in-law passes away, then they still can have an ADU, as long as they maintain that primary residence, and they can rent it for workforce housing. That's what Joe's language provides for.
Yeah, you could rent it those 5 months of the year you're gone too. There's nothing that,
Yeah, you could do it that way.
sure,
too.
even the primary residence.
And I think that's something important to preserve in the spirit of what we're doing.
I'm in favor of removing ADUs shall not be used as short-term rentals.
Okay.
I'm not.
Well, okay, and so the reason, again, I suggested that is that I think that that subject needs to be dealt with much more broadly in a different venue other than the LUO. I don't think it's strictly a land use issue. I think there's other aspects of it that need to be considered.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So the consensus I'm hearing right now is to remove H. Currently.
Replace it with Joe's language.
Well, right now, we're just removing that, and then we'll talk about replacing his, adding his to it.
I think we don't have consent, we don't have unanimity on that.
No, not on my board yet. No, it doesn't sound like it.
Not on, I think I heard Jan say that he was in favor of keeping
Oh,
ADUs
ADUs?
shall not be
Right.
used as short-term rentals.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Well, we could do both, I suppose. Leave it in there and add Joe's. They're compatible.
I guess if I look what's going on around us in the community here with the population and the schools decreasing, the empty houses, that's not what I envision as a community. You talked about, when we talked about parking, you said, well, if we restrict parking, you know, if a family comes over for Johnny's birthday, there's not gonna be any place for them to park. Well, there's not gonna be anybody left in town to come to Johnny's birthday, because there are gonna be no families left here. So my concern is that by either having a statement in there about it being a primary residence, or the owner needs to be the primary resident on one of those units, is that I don't just want all of these investment properties in the community surrounding me. And I think that what's been done to us with LD 2003 in having to allow ADUs everywhere across the community, I just think that we need to look at some way to try to put the brakes on that from happening. That's what I'm concerned about. I like having neighbors. I like talking to people. So that's my concern.
Well, my preference would be that short-term rentals only occur where the owner of the property is in residence on the property.
So again, short-term rentals are only
Short-term rentals are only allowed where the owner of the property is in residence on that property. That you cannot buy a house on the street and make it into a short-term rental and nobody lives there full-time. Nobody is responsible. Your checks go to BlackRock, okay? That's my concern. If you're living in a home and you want to build an ADU and you want it for short-term rentals, I'm actually fine with that. As long as you're living there and you're under control, the property is under your control.
Well, that's what
I said.
That's what Joe was
Yes,
saying.
well, that's what I'm
This
in
is
favor
only-
of. It's not that you can't use an ADU
Right.
as a short-term rental.
Right.
It's that you can't use it as a short-term rental in a building where nobody actually lives,
Yeah,
where the
Okay.
owner does not live.
and that's what Joe
And I
was-
agree with that, and I think that's what I'm trying to say.
And that's what I'm in favor of,
The,
what you're
the-
trying to say.
And I wouldn't have a problem with that either.
Okay.
The problem that I think that we've had all along is that this is the only place where we can control it.
Yes.
Short-term rentals. Short-term rentals, they could buy up all of our houses and all of our neighbors' houses, they, BlackRock, whoever this phantom is.
And they are.
Yeah,
they are.
okay. And we have no tools at our disposal right now to do anything about it.
Right.
We can only do something about the person who is sort of already here, has or wants to develop an ADU, perhaps lives here all year long, and it's on a much smaller scale. So
Yes.
those are few and far between. The number of ADUs that have been developed in towns that have had ordinances that allow them, they've not been like taking off like gangbusters.
That's right.
So
Right.
it's a small thing that we're really trying to narrowly define here, where the problem exists on a much larger scale on something we're not controlling. So
Right.
I don't want to come down too hard on folks who live here,
Right.
whether they live here full-time, part-time, whatever, for the sake of we only have one place to turn the dials.
Yeah. No, I don't think that people who live in the home are going to be renting out 3/4 of the home to parties, to 10 people coming for the weekend.
Yeah.
The way that happens on Montauk. Because they don't want to live with that mess. So if you're living there, I presume you're a responsible adult,
Right.
and you're going to be renting to people that you don't mind renting to. And I don't mind if they're there, those people.
Yeah.
What I mind is buildings that are basically vacant, that are used as transient housing. That's what bothers me, because those get out of control, or can get out of
I
control.
agree.
But right here in this ordinance, we're just trying to address ADUs, Jeff.
Right.
I understand.
The problem you're talking about is what Joe is saying, is it's
Well,
much bigger.
but, so here we could address ADUs as short-term rentals. You can't address all short-term rentals
Right.
at this moment. You
So
can't.
if we do what Joe is suggesting, we could leave
Yeah.
in the H.
I mean, all the buildings in town that are grandfathered that are Airbnbs, owned by investment companies, we can't do anything about that at this
Well,
point.
they're all grandfathered in at this point.
They're, as I say,
Yep.
they're grandfathered.
So
in.
it's-
Right. This is going forward.
this is just going forward.
Yeah.
So I think we could add Joe's, it puts a nice,
I think the only one that's got concerns is, is there anything we could do to change this to make you feel more
Can you
comfortable?
read it again?
Okay.
Sorry.
Sure, no problem.
maybe you could type it in around.
Yeah.
Or if you got it, you can copy and paste it.
I could do that, I could just
That'd
paste
be
it in
way
there.
easier here.
Let's see. Am I on? Okay. And you're in number 7. Okay. Come on, where's it gonna go? All right, where did it go?
Control V.
I did. For some reason, it wouldn't go. Let me try again. Yes, Control C, and then go over to that.
There you are. So
Okay.
I'll read it out loud.
Okay, so now you read it yourself. Either the primary or converted accessory dwelling unit, I had a dwelling, shall be occupied by the owner of a property as its primary physical residence.
There, as their primary physical, not its.
It's to there.
Thank you.
So this is you're proposing it
And do
be,
you wanna take, so then do you wanna take, shall not be used out of there?
Where shall be?
Yes,
Shall
G should be replaced with
Oh.
this. But now,
Now, let me just say one more thing. The parenthetical statement here, I think we've defined that somewhere else, so we could,
Yeah.
that could probably be deleted.
Yeah, we can leave both in there, it's not a problem.
So shouldn't it be, are we using the principal residence?
well,
Is that
yeah,
what-
but my question
The
is,
one that we defined earlier?
do we want to insist that the owner be there when it's being rented?
No.
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 So they could rent it by the night for
Yeah.
6 months a year, and not be there, no supervision be there. That's what you're
Well,
allowing?
yeah, that's,
Yeah,
I don't like
yeah, no. Yeah.
we're not gonna,
I don't think I would do that, no.
so you're keeping H in and
Yep.
adding I?
yep,
I initially suggested taking H out and putting
Yeah.
I in.
I don't like H in there,
Yeah.
if that's the case. I mean, I think you can combine them, but I
Someone
don't
else
think
did it?
on its own it should be left. I'd be open to combining them so that if the ADU is used as a short-term rental, the primary converted accessory dwelling unit, et cetera.
well, it already says that. That's what H says, right?
No. You're saying just ADUs in general.
Use a primary converted accessory.
Yeah, I see what Jeff's saying.
All right, add it.
What do you wanna do?
I mean, if you're trying to control short-term rental, having the residence, the primary residence on site, then you have to say,
You have to say that.
ADUs shall not be used as short-term rentals except, you know, this.
When the principal owner is living on site,
Yeah,
yes.
except in the case that the primary converted. I mean,
I think that's over restrictive.
over restrictive?
Yeah, I wouldn't put that in.
So what is I controlling? Just all uses of ADUs?
Well, first off, I think we're assuming that every owner is gonna be gone 5 months of the year. I don't think that's the case. I mean, a lot of people live there. So I think we're just talking about a small percentage of cases when you're trying to do that. I think it's overly restrictive.
No, I agree. I think that's a minor case, but
Yeah.
And we're really just talking about those that have involved an accessory dwelling unit. You know, we're not,
Yeah, that's
We're
all
not-
it
it's
is.
not
And
a
it's accessory
global
dwelling units going
statement.
forward. Are we close enough that we want to maybe delete some of the garbage there and so we can see the clear text? Could we like accept
yeah.
changes? And so the question is still if H there goes away or stays. I'm suggesting it goes away.
I agree. I mean, if you get rid of H, then you're controlling all ADUs the same way, whether they're short-term rentals or not.
Right. Right.
yeah, and if it's a primary resident and they wanna do a short-term rental and they're there, I think that's Jan's point, that he's
Yeah.
fine with
So
that.
what?
If you get rid of the line that's in red, then you're no longer addressing short-term rentals anywhere in the restrictions.
Not in this particular section.
Well, tell me where you are.
Well, you are. I mean,
Well, yeah,
you have to be in residence either way. Or you have to at least it has to be your primary dwelling.
It doesn't say that you have to be in residence.
No, exactly. It
No,
doesn't
it
say
has to be your primary dwelling.
That's a hard
Right.
thing to control. Or
Yes, I know it
directly
is. What? So you want to still remove ADU shall not be used as short-term rental?
I do.
Okay. So if you remove that, there is nothing in 816.2 that addresses short-term rentals in any fashion.
Well, it does in that you.
No, it doesn't.
If,
Those words are gone.
Well, wait, let's keep in mind that 816 is about accessory dwelling units only. That's all it's about.
I understand that.
Okay. And so whether or not they're short-term rentals, this section is only about accessory dwelling units.
we've defined what a short-term rental is already.
Right.
So there's money exchanged for something less than 30 days housing.
Okay.
So if you're doing that on this property, then you'd better, if you're renting it, then you have to be the primary, that has to be your primary residence. It's already including that.
Okay.
You don't have to explicitly say short-term rentals here.
So it's implied, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
All right,
encompassed.
If you
It's
think it is,
encompassed. It's
It's
encompassed.
encompassed.
okay.
Exactly.
We'll find out in court, won't we?
Well, kind of either way.
So are we okay with deleting H? Okay. So I'm gonna delete that, but then I gotta bring up,
You may not be okay.
Yeah, don't ask me.
That's okay.
no, I gotta bring up G now, so
It's
Jeff.
okay that you're not okay with it. Yeah, we could have dissenting opinions.
It's okay, yes. That's
So
right.
in comparison to H and G, I need y'all to kind of discuss those. How do they work with one another?
So G is a little bit confusing to read. G is basically saying you have a lot where a single-family residence is not the primary structure. So it's like some other use, it's a commercial use, and then there's,
Multifamily dwelling.
right, perhaps, or there's some other thing, and then you add two ADUs.
Yeah, so what the intent with G was if you owned a structure, it wasn't your primary structure, you could still have ADUs on it, still residential, nothing in there is really about commercial. So it's a residential lot that you have and you want to add two ADUs on it, or you wanted to add an ADU, then no more than two could be added. So if we're gonna add H, and we're saying that if you're gonna add an ADU, either the ADU or the principal structure is the primary residence, then that needs to, then we should delete H, or, then we need to delete G.
No, the two accessory dwelling units.
Yeah, I think you're
Because
right.
there's no
Aaron.
primary residence.
Yeah, I think you're right. We need to delete that. Now that I'm looking at it more critically.
Well, if you delete that, then what does that mean? There still cannot be two?
Well, you can
Then-
leave it, you can just leave in the part that no more than two accessory dwelling units are permitted to be added to any lot, and then just,
So right here on
And
F we have, we're saying you can have one ADU on your single-family dwelling unit, that's your
Right.
principal structure.
I thought G came from LD 2003. that
Yeah.
there
No,
was some
G
weird-
gives the ability to, so you, per LD 2003, you have to allow at least one on your principal structure.
Yeah.
And then you can also allow up to however many you want on any lot. And we opted in that conversation to say, okay, you can do two on a single-family dwelling unit that's not the principal structure. It's not a requirement.
What is the situation where the single-family dwelling is not the principal structure?
Let's say you own a lot that you rent out long-term. Let's just say that's the example. And that lot is a single-family dwelling. You have the room to add two ADUs out back to rent out.
Wait, I rent out a single-family dwelling, that principal structure versus primary residence, or
Single-family dwelling unit is not the principal structure under G.
but it is. In the situation you described, it's still a single-family dwelling that's the principal structure of the lot.
but it's not.
So-
not
Primary. Not primary residence, principal
Oh, I see
structure.
what you're bringing up.
No.
Primary,
Principal
Yeah.
structure, it could be a gasoline station.
Exactly, and then you can add two
And then you
ADUs.
have two ADUs in the back.
Right,
And you have to live in one of them.
No, we don't-
yes,
Okay, then that's legal.
yeah.
so then,
No,
in your opinion, do you think G is okay to stay with H?
With age, yes.
well, you mean as is?
As is currently, yes.
It's further restricted by H.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you can add two, as Janet said, but you need to live in one.
Okay.
I don't know how you sell that.
I wanted to bring it up just to have a conversation because it did bring a little conflicting bit into my head just initially. So
Well, why do we have F then?
You can add one to a lot where there is a single-family dwelling unit.
Well, you could add no more, the next thing says you can add two. Why are we?
But there's no single-family dwelling unit as a principal structure.
Oh,
So the principal structure could be something else, like
It's
somebody
kind of weird
suggested.
because then you can add two, say you had a gas station
Yeah.
Well,
and a house, but the gas station is the principal
let me
one.
give you more
You
interesting.
can add two more.
The principal building is an event center. And you have, the ADUs outside are rented by the bride and groom and their families. And you have to live in one of those, and they use the event center to get married, or something like that. So that's a place where the principal structure is not a private home. There are two ADUs on the lot. The owner has to live in one, and the other can be a short-term rental.
no, but in that case, Jan, that's fine, because the primary resident, the owner is there.
And I'm saying
And
it is
It's an
fine.
owner-occupied business.
Right.
and,
No, I'm saying it is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as the owner is there, that to me is the controlling factor
Yeah.
for a short-term rental not being an outrageous
Right,
thing.
and it's to what Joe brought up at the beginning was that's the whole intent of an ADU, is that it is the, so-called mother-in-law apartment.
Yeah.
It's something that's familiar.
Well, and whether we agree with it or not,
Yeah, we have to do it.
LD 2003 portrayed it that way, and that's the reason they put it in there, because they thought it was going to provide more housing availability.
Well, but it could be workforce housing, small workforce housing for a single person.
That's right, and I think that was,
That's what they would.
I think that was the
And
intent.
whether it does
I
it
think that was the
directly-
intent, but it may
Right.
turn out different ways in different parts of the state.
Now,
Yes.
the indirect, as I think we talked about a while ago, was that somebody, the mother-in-law, can move out of the big house and provide it for workforce housing by living with the in-laws.
And I agree, and that's fine with me. Yes, that's fine with me.
Okay, are we good? We good?
We'll keep it.
Let's move on.
So there's no comments, just a bunch of changing accessory dwelling unit to ADU.
Did Bob have anything in this section?
I think there is, and I think like I said, we gotta go
Yeah.
back and find those and look through that again after this meeting.
Okay.
We have a hand wave.
Not much.
Yeah, there wasn't.
One comment on the,
You got a microphone there?
Yeah, it's closer.
there it is. I haven't kicked it yet. In the purpose statement, the idea is to increase housing density, affordable housing.
Richard, grab the microphone.
Is it off axis?
There you go, don't kick it.
So accessory dwelling unit size, at least 190 square feet, but not to exceed 600 square feet.
Where are you?
Where, what section are you at?
That's 816.5.
Yes.
Okay.
Below the parking.
Yep.
600 square feet seems a minuscule number if you're trying to increase housing density and create affordable housing. That's a very, very small place. And where did those numbers come from?
The 190 is a given, the
Yeah,
600.
I mean, sure,
The 190 was a
no
given.
less than that.
And the guidance said we can add a maximum if we want.
Correct.
Right.
But whether we want to is the question.
Well, that's it.
So what are you suggesting that you would think it might be?
Well, I mean, you've already specified that the ADU has to be less than the primary
Right.
resident.
That should be enough.
Should-
Eliminate the maximum.
Yeah, eliminate the maximum.
Oh, that could be one big Mambo accessory dwelling unit.
Well, it has to be less than the main house.
Yeah, but what if you got a monstrous main house? I mean,
Or what, as long as the coverage of the lot is
Right.
within the zone.
What
That
are we
has to be-
trying,
We're fine.
are we worried about the footprint, or are we worried about the actual total square footage?
I'm more worried about the practicalness of the building itself. If you've got a bedroom, a living room, and a little kitchenette,
That's
I mean, you
600
ought to
square
have at
feet.
least 1,000 square feet as a maximum.
Oh, no,
Well,
600
what are we worried about on your side? If the maximum were increased? I mean, if we're actually trying to encourage workforce housing,
Well,
then
that's the whole point, that's the
less
purpose
restriction
statement.
is better in this case, I think.
I think the minimum is all you need.
I would agree.
Because we've already said that the max, it can't be larger than the principal building. So there's your size range.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it still has to conform to lot coverage for the zone. So I think that that's enough. We don't need the 600
No,
square
it
feet.
doesed does it?
No, ADU does not have to adhere
Yeah,
to
the
lot
ADU
coverage.
gets past all that. It gets past the parking requirements, it gets past everything.
It just has to adhere to the setbacks. So
Right.
whatever the setbacks
Setbacks.
are, it has to fit within that. It doesn't
Well,
add lot
fine.
coverage.
I'm fine with that.
The only thing is that the size of it is gonna likely, I'm gonna guess, correlate with the price that it would be worth to rent.
Well, that and its usability. Like, I mean, like you said, like there's only so much you can do in a certain period, like in that size of space. And while it works for a tiny house on wheels, even those go up to 1,000 square feet. And capping this off, this seems counterintuitive for what we're trying to get done with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we're not saying that an ADU has to be an affordable house.
No.
We're not saying that. So, yes, it'd be nice if this increased workforce housing, but we're not demanding that it do that.
All right, so if we just let it be a minimum, or it has to be at least 190 square feet?
Yeah.
And then smaller than the primary residence.
Either that or change the purpose statement.
What's the purpose?
Did we say that somewhere then, up front? Did we say smaller than the primary residence?
Yeah, where do we say that?
Yeah, that's mentioned in here.
Exceed height.
Okay, I'll concede on that one.
Thanks, John.
You owe me, Richard.
So we're just gonna say, must be at least 190 square feet in size, period.
Yeah.
I guess that's what everybody is comfortable with, so
Yeah.
I'll go along with it.
Good.
Where do we see it's not bigger than that?
Yeah, I was looking for that too.
I mean, height, I see.
find it?
It's 816.2D height.
Yeah, one can't exceed.
I
I
believe
see
it
height.
can't be any taller than primary residence.
I think that's already in there.
Where's the size though?
It's just height though, isn't it?
Oh,
But
it
isn't
is
it,
such a dwelling. Oh,
doesn't
no.
this go back to what we
No,
talked about months ago, where it's defined as the, what's the word they use?
Yeah, how do we define it?
Secondary?
No, it's not secondary.
Okay, dwelling unit.
Subordinate.
Do you
Subordinate?
want me to read the definition?
Yeah.
Okay. A self-contained dwelling unit that is located within, attached to, or detached from a single-family dwelling unit located on the same parcel of land. Access to the interior of the ADU must be provided without the need to pass through another dwelling unit. Full stop.
That's it?
Okay.
So if you want that, we have to add something.
So you wanna put that in the same one as height? You could just include it in there.
Height or
I think it
footprint?
fits.
Should not exceed the height or
Yeah.
footprint, nor footprint,
Yeah.
nor footprint.
So are you, like, you're saying now that it cannot be as large?
Can't be larger in height or area
Okay.
than the
Footprint,
existing primary.
footprint and size are two different things.
Yeah, don't we mean square footage?
Because it could be multi-story.
No,
Not if
No.
it's height.
well, well,
Let's just say footprint and
I
height.
can make a two-story structure the same size as a one-story ranch.
Right, but it
and have
wouldn't,
a
you,
smaller
So
footprint.
which do you want to control?
But you would be over
I
the
think the
height.
size,
You'd be
not
over
the
the
footprint,
height.
I think the size.
Gross floor area.
no, well, guys, real
Yes.
quick,
Yeah.
if you had a one-story ranch and then you tried to make a two-story ADU, you'd be violating the height piece, which says it can't be
Right.
past the original piece. So
Right.
your footprint and height work in
They work
concert
together.
to make that, and not really airtight, but it gets past what it is you're looking at. Like, you don't have to count the second floor if the first
Well,
floor
a
is.
second,
I think so,
but a
not
two-story
that.
building could
You
pass
could
the
have a
height.
two-story cape or something. I mean, I just think you ought to just say square feet in whatever way you want to classify it, because footprint is not gonna cover it.
Okay, footprint becomes square footage.
Yeah, footprint is too,
It's not a term.
too
Does that
undefined.
include
That's
an
not a term.
attached
What,
Square
two-car
footage isn't a
garage?
term. It's gross floor area or something like that.
okay. Like I
Joe.
said, gross floor
Living
area.
area,
Does that?
Or
living area.
something like that.
Living area,
Yeah.
yeah, living area.
Nothing
Shall
like having
not
an architect next to you, Jesus Christ.
exceed, did you hear that comment, Jeff, living area?
Living area. Well, I'm trying to look for it. What, do you know a definition that we
Well,
have in the ordinance?
So what about this? So in D, so shall not exceed the height nor footprint and shall be subordinate to the existing primary dwelling.
Subordinate.
Subordinate to or of? Who's the? Ask Tom on that one.
Okay, so the term we have in the ordinance is floor area.
Mhm.
The sum of the horizontal areas of the floors of a structure enclosed by exterior walls.
For footprint?
No, no,
Well,
it's not footprint.
Are we
If
not?
it's floor
No, floor
area, if it's
areas.
multiple stories.
I'm
Yeah.
asking.
some of the areas.
So you change footprint to floor area, is that what you're saying?
When you said square footage, that connotes to area, and in our ordinance, it's called floor area, so.
So
The way we
change
refer to it, yeah.
change footprint to floor area
Yeah.
If you have that, yeah, floor area.
Yep,
is what you're suggesting.
sounds like that's what he's suggesting.
That's fine.
Do we care if there's an existing building, an existing single-family home on a lot, and the owner comes in and says, I'm gonna build a bigger house and call that the ADU? Do we care?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
You're increasing the tax base.
Yeah. I don't think we care. As long as the whole thing fits into the zoning, we're fine.
Okay, so, are we good on that statement then, floor area, D? So I think we jumped from the bottom back up there. Right? We swore, no, I guess that's it. Parking.
So we just say it must be at least 190 square feet in size and shall not exceed the floor space of the other building?
We've already got that addressed.
We're
up
not
above.
worried about that.
So,
Fine. That's fine.
Okay, have we covered all the sections?
Yep.
Yep. Strong on this one.
Any other comments from notes? All right. Straw vote, whether we're complete with our input on this section and ready to move forward. All in favor? 700. Sold. Okay, was that the last section?
that was the last section.
Oh my God,
So,
got through it.
yet to be completed. Ryan, you're gonna go through Bob's comments.
I've already gone through Bob's comments and I've already incorporated them. Do you want me to discuss them now?
No, but I guess I'd like just an opportunity outside the meeting just to look at it.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sounds
Okay.
good.
right. Just post it so we can see it.
So just post that document, somehow clearly that you've
I mean,
incorporated the.
when I read it,
the input.
there was nothing, there was no policy change.
No.
No, and that's what he said.
Yeah.
He's mainly just helping add some strength to it.
Yeah, I think it's just a fast over, just to look at it.
Somewhere in there I saw a section 1400. That should probably be a chapter 1400.
It is, yeah, that got changed.
You found that
I
one?
did.
Yeah. Okay.
So if we do that, and we do that fast over outside this meeting, we're gonna need to get back together to, move this forward to select board.
Correct,
And we also need to get together and go through the, Rock City thing.
correct.
So we gotta pick a date to do that. It should be a little bit shorter meeting than tonight was.
Yeah.
And I hope
I
so.
think,
I did notice something, Orion. Almost every reference to Rock City Roasters is ROC. That's a giant bird. Is that how they pronounce it?
No,
Is that-
it's R-O-C-K. That's how they pronounce it,
I mean,
yes.
not- is that how
It's
they
not, it's
spell
rock,
it?
no, it's rock, R-O-C-K.
That's what they gave me.
Okay.
But I like the other one.
The Rock.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was Sinbad the Sailor.
exactly.
Yeah, let's go for a date.
2 weeks or what?
Oh, no,
Yeah, I think he's gonna go for that
no.
Can't be this month.
You want less?
next week,
Oh, okay.
next Thursday.
Next Thursday?
We can do,
What
let's
is
see,
that?
this is the first.
Okay,
Where am I at? Hold on a minute.
5:30?
Well, we're-
So
you know, we've got that
first.
too yet. He's looking at the calendar.
Oh, I have it,
It's
it's, you agreed to it, I have it, so.
Okay. Yeah, we can do the first, if that works.
But I like 5:30.
Fancy that.
Does that
What,
work for
first?
everybody, the 1st of February?
5:30 first,
Uh-huh.
Yep.
here?
Here.
The only contingent thing, and I don't think it'll be an issue, is the library reserving this room. Jeff, do you have any way to access their calendar?
I do not.
Okay. So, we'll tentatively put it for the first. If there's an issue with the library, I'll reach out, but, and then that'll be posted on the town website if that is to change. Just putting that on the record, but,
And that's gonna be to vote on what we've seen, what this, what we will now see, and the Rock City thing.
Correct.
No more than that.
I do believe so,
Right.
Joe.
That's correct, I
Yep.
believe that's.
Is that enough?
that's it.
Is that
We're not
adequate?
gonna accept new applications, but.
No.
Adequate
Yeah,
time
please
to
don't.
post a meeting?
Well, this is a continuance.
Okay.
So, we do need a formal motion to put a continuance.
On Rock City, yep.
Well,
Um,
it's for the agenda, for the ordinance items and Rock
Okay.
City.
Okay. Somebody,
I'll move to have a continuance date to be determined to take up the remainder of the agenda items.
Seconded.
all in favor? Okay, 700, thank you.
Nice.
Move to adjourn.
Let's see, I don't think there's anything else. We have no minutes, we have nothing else, no other business. Ryan, you got anything else?
I do not.
Move to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor of adjourning?
Majority, yes.
Okay,
700.
and the meeting is adjourned at 9:02.